Welcome everyone to a fresh season of GSL. That's right, they're back. And they have a few, well, not fresh faces. Old faces that are refreshed. There we go. And we will be casting one of those faces here today. In this top right spot on altitude, it's no one new. It is, you know, Maru. I mean, who cares? Whatever. Maru. Whatever. No. In the bottom left, far more interesting, far more cool. We have TY coming back into the pro gaming scene. He actually did come back from military months ago. I would say early this year, because he actually tried to qualify for GSL Season 1 2023, and he fell short. He also fell short qualifying for ASL, I believe, the Brood War tournament. He did come back from the military and said that he wanted to try and be good at both games. Now, TY would be probably the only person I think who could really do that, considering that he was actually amazing at both games. Flash was also very good at both games, and we have other people that are examples of being good at both. But I would say that none of them have the credential that is having basically grown up on StarCraft, which TY has done. TY, formerly known as Baby, was actually his name until he changed it. Not his real name, obviously. Is actually exactly like Maru. He was Maru before Maru came in. He was the super young kid in that big old booth, you know, like too short and like having like a booster seat, right? Back in Brood War, which is basically agreed upon to be a more difficult game, although it's kind of a moot point because they both have such high skill caps. Like, who really cares, right? So anyways, he's been in StarCraft 1 and then 2 since he was like 12. Pretty sure it was 11 or 12, actually. Maru ditto, but only StarCraft 2. If he was playing Brood War as a kid, it was for funsies, although I'm sure he was also pretty good. TY was actually a pro. So that's why it's kind of cool. I feel like he still is the best example of someone who could do it, but he did fail in his first attempt to get into both tournaments. I actually do not know the result of his second attempt to get into ASL because I don't keep up with that as much. But obviously he's here today in the GSL, which is already pretty cool. If he does happen to also get into ASL, that would be awesome. TY, actually, there's so much to talk about, really, because maybe you haven't seen him before, maybe you don't remember him, but also just the general storylines that I haven't really talked much about the builds because, well, it's typical TVT, fortunately for me. But it's so much. The history of him being just so long, and including Maru, they both being those kind of mirror images to a certain degree. Different play styles, though, and I guess we can also talk about their TVT history between the two, because we can't forget about that. It's giving us one of the most exciting best-of-7 GSL finals, TVT, that we have seen. There's just so much, actually. So TY comes back into StarCraft 2 after doing military, is also playing Brood War, streaming a lot as well, by the way, and on a Freako, though. And is now facing someone who he used to be like a rival with, I would say, who was the better young kid, I suppose. But then literally they would always face each other, and TY was one of the only guys who could defeat Maru in a TVT. This was before Maru literally had something like a 95% win record. What was it, like 2 years ago? But still, Maru was not losing to many Terran players except TY. So they're back at it again. Fast forward 2-ish years, and TY is once again trying to be one of the few Terrans who can actually take down Maru in a TVT. Of course, it is only the preliminary match of GSL, so not nearly, you know, it could be hyper, I suppose. But I think it's obviously very cool. I think anyone who's like, whatever, this isn't fun. Like, I think you're wrong. Even if it's TVT, I still think you're wrong. This TVT is at least somewhat exciting. We do have a Widow Mine drop coming in, which is already fairly effective, more so than usual. The Widow Mine pops off, the Henling got a couple of shots, the Medivac survives! Oh, okay, yeah, no, that's a very effective drop then. 4 SCVs, little scuffle, but then the Medivac lives. I would say is successful. It would be even more successful, of course, if there was any amount of units in this medevac and it was healthier, so it could continue to dodge and weave and run around and be annoying, but I would still say that was a success. Now, an even bigger success for this would be if it's scouted. It did get an important scout. It saw that it was a barracks already researching stim. So even though it didn't see whatever else was happening, it saw the stimmed barracks. That was a weird way to put it, but you know what I mean. It saw only one Cyclone. It didn't see any Vikings, and unlikely to have a Raven on the map, right? If you're going that fast into Stim, you're basically doing a 2-1-1, but you take a little stop on a Cyclone because that's a little safer, you know, in TVT. So TY should know exactly what's going on, and we already have both of them kind of playing up to their styles like they used to, back when they used to face each other all the time. Maru does have more renown as a turtle player than he did 3 years ago, I think, but it's kind of the same thing, which is that Maru's just good at everything, you know? Like, does he lead the way in knowing how to turtle and come back in TVT? Yes. Does he lead the way in turtle TVZ? Probably, but it's just that he's good at everything, right? But TY, in particular, is the slower, more passive player a lot of the time. Maybe not passive is not the right word, but he definitely is slower. Literally in his style and in his actions. If you watch him stream, he is not a very fast player. And fast enough with a very effective APM, of course. Medevac finally gets destroyed. But he's not very fast. And he just plays with very effective movements. And kind of a cunningness in TVT that, you know, Maru matches a lot of the time, but not all the time. TY just knows exactly when to push and pull and is very calm and collected about it, where even with Maru, you might see him do a couple of panic moves. And certainly if you're going into the more aggressive bio style, you're kind of allowed to do a couple more panic moves to be the one that kind of throws away 8 Marines here and there in an effort to get some damage done, or indirect damage even. But in general, TY would be the more likely one to have, you know, less units lost, for instance, or have more of a kind of a 1-2-3 punch in the guts rather than just these mosquito bites that Maru is going to be looking for. As his 2 medevacs enter into the natural, they find not much. The workers killed here over on the left side, that's not Maru killing TY's workers. That's TY killing Maru's. That Banshee ran in, the weird, odd Banshee timing. Came in and killed 6 workers. Also helped to deflect this drop, which did eventually get on top of a tank to do some damage. But this is a great start for TY. He was going mech. And I was describing his playstyle in general, but obviously I was also describing something that's very good for mech. Passive and knowing when to strike and how to defend, and mostly just relying on your smarts more than trying to be some type of Super Saiyan action hero that just runs around every which way. So TY, having deflected this initial drop, I would say fairly well, like a little bit of chaos here and there, but it's really not a big deal, is in a wonderful position as far as TY goes and as far as mech goes. His 3-base setup is probably safe. Yeah, I think it's safe. Well, okay, hold on. We'll witness it. But I think it's relatively safe. This drop might be exactly what Maru needs. Yeah, he sees that there's actually not a whole lot of defending units. 2 tanks actually in the very far back, but the scan revealed that, so he just drops right on top of them. Nothing to deter him. TY is actually going for a very weird style of mech, which I'll get into in a second once we see what happens with this drop. Great interference mixed with the 1 Raven that he had, although it does get locked on. It might die. Nah, it's gonna live. And actually, Maru realized he didn't have to necessarily evacuate. These are bare bone Marines. Only a couple of Hellions to help out. It was the Banshees that really doing a whole lot of DPS, and now Maru was forced to evacuate, but that was more so what Maru was hoping to find. Wow, dropping on top of the natural as well. Taking advantage of the drops is... It's actually kind of crazy good. Like, that's why I'm a little stumped here. It's crazy good that Maru opened up the way that he did and is finding damage with the particular style of play that he wanted to do. A lot of Marines, a lot of drops. Great, good on him. But it's especially effective because TY did go for a non-Viking mech style of play. This would actually be punished pretty hard in a lot of other mech games because there'd be 4 Vikings, 4 to 8 Vikings even, right? usually hovering over the main, so the first quadruple drop wouldn't have worked, and then they at least would be able to punish any drops that did work. They'd be able to chase down the medevacs, right? And that's just not something that TY has, because he opted for the Banshees, which initially got those SCV kills, and that was fantastic, but are revealing their weakness as TY bleeds off tanks, and in general is having a harder time trying to get settled. Suddenly the supplies leading for Maru, which just a minute ago was not the case and was a terrible sign for a bio player versus a mech player. Now this looks more in line with what a bio player would want, but still not that far ahead. Maru would have to do more damage, and he'd have to also get an actual gut punch to the side of the map to really feel secure about this game, which that's what's missing. All of these drops are finding tanks, they're finding some SCVs, they're finding some infrastructure, like some of the static defense, I suppose. The refineries, which is a pretty big deal for a mech player. But they're not actually killing TY. So TY has the opportunity to recover if he is, wise about it, I suppose. Doesn't panic, continues on his macro, continues on his mechanics. Supply block actually, once again, is a bit painful, but and then has other units in position well enough. He also has the benefit of it being the large map, right? Altitude. So Maru trying to drop and then go for a follow-up push across the map with the rest of his army doesn't really hit at the same pace like it would on a different map. So TY is actually still okay, but losing a fourth command center for free is not okay. That's not so great. And yet, even if it dies, which it looks like it indeed will, that's not the worst thing ever for TY. He could actually replace that and still be okay. As he gets over the 150 hump, that's where mech is usually secure as far as the classic mech versus bio style. Right, so the bio player just cannot overwhelm the mech player that has over 150 supply, because that usually means they have, 8+ tanks. They can move them around. They're on 3 bases. They can build missile turrets, right? Very hard to crack this setup with a bio army. Well, that's why Maru is doing what he's doing, though, right? He realizes that he hadn't had a chance to actually crack TY's skull. He's just been knocking him around a little bit. So he moves over into the starport technology. That is the real finale of dealing with mech players. He is still trying to abuse the hell out of the lack of Vikings, though. He is going to continue dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. I mean, besides Vikings, which obviously TY does not want to get, he's just like, Banshees are great, I'm going to go more Banshees. He could at least try and get some Cyclones or something, but nope. Emphasizing the tank production while he can. Making sure that count stays up nice and high, and then hoping that eventually the Banshee count, I guess, gets high enough that they just kill things as they unload. And with the speed finally upgraded on them as well, that is starting to kind of work. I can kind of see what he's maybe thinking as far as Banshees being anti-drop defense, because they're definitely not anti-air, but they're anti-drop defense. I can kind of see what he was thinking. And again, this is just such a beautiful highlight of the dynamic between the two. Maru playing certainly a more classical style and, almost perfectly identifying his opponent's weaknesses, and that's fantastic, and his macro and his mechanics and his harassment, it's all good stuff. But then TY playing a slower style where he's getting battered and bruised, but he remains basically steadfast. He's like, well, I might eventually survive if you just calm down for a second. And so far, I think TY's doing it. The Hellbats do have to transform, but you could see that drop was not as successful as Maru was necessarily hoping for. The amount of DPS from, 15 Hellions was still something. And if they were Hellbats to begin with, it would have been even better. The Banshees also adding in a lot of DPS. If they get focus fired down, they're not a big issue. They're glass cannons. If they don't, tons of damage output from them. And Maru is trying to open up opportunities, not necessarily to stop TY from getting this extra base. That 4th base is secured and fine. And not necessarily to open up a hole on the ground, but rather to ensure that TY continues to reinforcing his ground army so that he never has the time to actually get into his air army. Right? That's more so what Maru's looking to do with all of these drops and this consistent pressure is partial distraction, I guess you could argue, but then really just making sure that TY never feels super comfortable. If Maru does absolutely nothing while he gets up to battle cruisers, by the way, then TY might, one, be like, okay, what is this guy doing? He's got to be doing something else. He's got to be going into air. And then 2, can say, oh, well, I'm okay stopping at 170 supply to add on my starports and start my own air transition. That's not something that TY has been very comfortable doing with all the pressure that Maru has applied. So Maru still has the ultimate I guess, victory button here, the air, the battlecruiser teleport. But if TY can pick up on this fast enough, perhaps he can actually get a hefty Viking count and at least somewhat respond to the late game Maru. Maru's attack on this 5th base, a bit of a disaster. He actually gets pushed back, and TY is going to take the opportunity to even counter-attack, realizing that he is now totally free to do so. There's really no other pressure. He scans ahead. He sees the battlecruiser. That's an okay number of Vikings. 2 Ravens as well for Maru. What does TY have? TY has 5 Vikings. That is it. He's still going to actually go for this attack. The tanks, at the very least, get a couple of shots off, and the bio of Maru does get killed. It's a lot of blood right there. But then what about the battlecruisers? Eventually, they will kill the tanks. TY is trying to play this out in such an almost like Brood War style. I'll elaborate in a second, but it's a real weird fight. Usually, if you scanned ahead without your own Viking surplus, and you saw battlecruisers and Vikings, you would just be like, oh, just kidding. Never mind. Nope, I'm out of here. But TY, to ensure that he has time to recover as Cyclones make an appearance, I know I mentioned that earlier, but I kind of forgot about it. He instead makes sure to siege some units, take down the bio while slowly retreating with what that he can, right? Not allowing Maru an opportunity to go, oh shit, I'm winning, let's just go across the map and kill the guy. TY made sure that Maru bled out in his own counterattack. I guess it was a counterattack and then another counterattack. And so he could also buy time for Cyclones, which are some of the fastest building things that he can get. Vikings do build 2 at a time, but they're not necessarily the... I don't know how to say this, like the punchiest against a couple of battlecruisers. You get 4 Vikings, great, but the battlecruisers, especially if they have Yamato, might not die quickly enough to them. 3 Cyclones get a lock on, especially if they have their upgrade, which they don't. I mean, that actually is a lot. And then obviously they can do a bit more chasing as the lock on stays for a certain length. So I actually really like that. TY did that. It was a great emergency response. However, do not mistake the Cyclones being good against battlecruisers as something that means that you can go Cyclones versus battlecruisers in the late game. That's actually not how this is going to work or supposed to work. Cyclones are also glass cannons, much like the Banshees earlier on. Cyclones are going to get killed by the bio. They're going to get killed by the tank shots. But if they survive, they will be good against the battlecruisers. We got 2 more teleporting in, going for the Yamatos immediately on those Cyclones, and battlecruisers are still the best unit for the late game. They have the teleport, they have the micro, they have the one-shot that is Yamato, and TY does get punished for his move out and is going to have to tap out. But what a fascinating game. TY really making this look better than it should have. That's what this was. This was supposed to be something where Maru identified the lack of Vikings as just like Trollolo land, right? Roll your face across the keyboard and drop every which way, and then the tanks can't shoot up. What a genius concept. And then TY still survived. And then TY is, in trouble because he definitely did not find the kill move before battlecruisers arrived. But he still made that look like it was somewhat contentious. Like Maru also had to be careful. Pretty cool. I mean, TY losing against Maru happened at his peak. I feel like this is almost like peak TY losing to Maru, you know? This was still a very cool, well-executed TVT on the side of the returning professional. It just goes to show how good TY is at this game, I guess. But Maru does take the first game, so let's see if he can continue and get the 2-0 to start the GSL group off. Game number 2 on Gresvon. Lost my webcam. In the bottom right, he is Maru, winning game number 1. In the top left, he is TY. Not exactly fresh from the military, but relatively. Last 6 months. Again, he did not manage to enter into GSL Season 1, but he did qualify in Season 2, beating some other fan favorites. And that first game, like I said, I thought it was a very good game. I thought TY was displaying typical TY-ness. Perhaps if I really, really analyzed it, went back and slowed everything down and looked at his mechanics and whatnot, maybe I'd see some differences between him and Maru. But, I don't think there was anything too bad. His supply blocks were because of all the damage that Maru was doing. And his bank increased to almost 1,000. at one point, and I think it was because, again, he got dropped while he was trying to build his extra factories. So, like, it was forced errors. And otherwise, TY was showing a slow, deliberate style, mech, of course, but then also making sure that he had that extra TY flair, where he's obviously using his big old brain to try and figure things out. He's trying to figure out how could this be improved, or how could this be different to unsettle a guy who's so used to the typical mech. Like, either one is great. If he thinks that he can improve on the mech and TVT to make it better overall, fantastic. If he figured that Maru would not expect such a TVT style, also fantastic. Unfortunately, even if Maru was not expecting those Banshees, really the biggest difference, didn't end up doing a whole lot. Or rather, I should say, it didn't end up actually hurting him, because he won the game. So, Maru, you know, he wanted to go into that 2-on-1 opener. He wanted to get the action started. He wanted to get the ball rolling, no doubt thinking back to their typical 1v1s of the past, where TY was usually a bit more the defensive player, the slower player, and slower build-ups, and he was the faster player. You know, despite TY also being the baby StarCraft 2 player, literally his nickname was Baby, he is older. He was a baby first. And that's what being older means. So they just became this, you know, classic clash of, you know, the new versus the old, even though they're both still stupidly young. And I just got displayed again in the last game, so it was really cool. Maru, I think, also wanting to do the same thing, probably because, again, thinking of the styles, but also getting that confirmation from the last game that what he chose to do was good. So why not do something similar again? Opening up 2 Reapers, 2 Raxes, 3 Reapers into a 2-1-1, right? If you proxy 2 Rax, you can't 2-1-1. If you proxy 1 Rax of 2 Barracks, you can't really do a 2-1-1. You keep them both at home, you're probably heading over into a 2-1-1. Like a pre-hipster who's a baby before being a baby was cool. Yeah, that was TY, for sure. For sure. TY also using his second supply depot? Oh, third, okay. His third supply depot to already get a scout on the left side. Now, this is a cool idea, because he's maybe figuring, again, they both know each other, and they really, as far as styles, haven't changed all that much, I guess. Might be thinking Maru's going to do something similar. He's going to try and drop me left, right, and center. He doesn't know it. He does not know that Maru went for a 2 Rax opener. He's only just now getting any type of scout, but he's clearly thinking about it. He wants the notification. However, keep in mind that the earlier you slap down these supply depots around the map to protect you, the more impactful their death will be to you, right? The earlier the game, the more that 100 mineral impact is gonna hurt. So that's why we don't usually see it. Anywho, Maru is going into a 2-1-1 setup that is strictly to say that he has 2 barracks, a factory, and a starport, but he actually is getting a tank and a Viking. TY has once again gone into his Wood of Mine drop. This time it is less effective, although if I got the Cyclone, it'd be pretty nice, but a Mass Repair is going to make sure that doesn't happen. He does save a lot of the units, and the medevac is completely healthy, but like this example of the Wood of Mine drop and the last game example of a Wood of Mine drop both have their strengths and weaknesses, I feel like. Maru, most importantly, still has a Cyclone, is chasing after the medevac, and also has a Viking buddy trying to help out. TY is actually trying to save the medevac by sending his units across the map. Was maybe thinking about doing a push anyways, but is now just trying to catch units in transit. Almost catches the Cyclone, but Maru pulls back at the right time as Viking provides that high ground vision. TY, barely saving his tank and his Liberator, and killing at least the Viking. Did not manage to grab that Cyclone, but that could have been way worse for TY. He was about to lose 2 very impactful units. More impactful, more expensive, I guess, than what Maru was getting, although... Well, actually, I mean, not that much more expensive. But the point is, he was going to lose all momentum if he had lost those 2 units. And now, you can actually kind of continue with this idea of a push. He pulls the SCVs to get some repair going. A scan from Maru wants to know, like, hey, if there's a 3rd CC, I know I don't have to worry very much, right? If there's a 2nd factory, I can have to worry about something else. If there's a 2nd starport, I got to worry about something else. If this guy's still on the 1-1-1 setup, then I do have to be worried about this becoming a push. And then I do have to worry about potentially my scan not seeing such a thing as like a second starport, right? That's actually the worst thing that could happen tomorrow, I think. So if you're like not sure what the opponent's really doing, you're like, well, it could be that, it could be this. You want to think about the worst case scenario first, right? And I would say the worst case scenario is not being prepared for a 2-starport push. If TOI ends up having a 3rd CC on location that Maru didn't see, that has its issues, but yeah. It is a double starport. Maru is right to try and get the battle going ahead of his base. Buy as much time as possible. Keep them away from hitting something important, like your command center. And we even have a little bit of a stalemate. Now with 3 Vikings at a time, it is clear. The double starport player is supposed to eventually have the air control, and TOI does. But Maru didn't have really the option to go into his own double starport or something like that. Did have the option to continue along the lines of, again, like a 2-1-1. Get stim, get combat shields, get a decent amount of bio, get medivacs, and either go for a base trade, which has happened in the past, a desperate gambit against the 2-starport, or to try and get one nice engagement. Decent concave, maybe a bit of a sandwich, right, from the back. And then the amount of units the bio player has can overwhelm the quality units that TY has. So quality versus quantity. Maru has bought in a lot of time. He really has. You know, if TY got up and on top of that bunker ASAP, this is already way worse. But TY is only just now approaching the bunker. That's so much extra time for Maru. He's going to have combat shields. Although, he's not going to wait for it, actually. Well, that might be a mistake. Let's see. Interference, but it's from the left side, is great. 2 tanks taken out of the equation. And it looks like the amount of units from Maru is going to be enough to break down TY's push. All the Vikings are dead, the tanks are dead, and TY is also dead. GG. Maru with an excellent defense against the 2-starport play of TY. Takes the 2-0. But is not clear of this group quite yet. He moves on to the winners match, and TY moves on to the losers. It's the second preliminary match. We just saw TY lose to Maru 0-2. Now we have a TVP to witness for the next 2 players of this GSL group. In the bottom left, we have Classic. The top right, it is Bunny. Classic, one of the promising Protoss in this matchup. There aren't that many. It's not like every Protoss who enters the battlefield against Terran automatically loses, but it does usually mean that they are very aware of how tough it's going to be. And I think that remains true even for the people who are winning against Terrans. So Classic actually might win against a couple of really good Terrans, but if you asked him about the state of TVP, he'd probably have some strong opinions. So, it's just where we're at right now. It's actually where we're at. Generally, people are pretty much on the side of aggressive Protoss is better than defensive Protoss, but we do still see people like Showtime playing very good games with Colossus openers. We see Hero really trying to mix it up. Hero doesn't really know what he wants to do, actually. From what I've seen, Hero is kind of just like everything and anything all at once. Because he doesn't seem to really have his own style chosen yet. He's going through another awkward teenage phase, you know? That's Hero right now. Classic at least seems to have a handle on what he wants to do in the matchup. Even if it doesn't work.
Twitch Prime sub received.
But, you know, having a good plan to start things off is just, you know, the first step to actually being good at StarCraft, guys. And Classic does tend to lean towards more of the aggressive Protoss in this matchup, I think. But I have also seen him do, like, 2-base Colossus openers and whatnot. So, case in point, he did go for double gas. He's actually doing a Hero-esque build. I know Hero lately has not been the best, but we know that Hero has done great things for the Protoss race in the last 2 years. But yeah, I mean, Hero was definitely doing this a lot in the beginning of this map pool. Bunny actually quick to scout. I thought he was onto it. I thought he was just going to default scout for it. Because why not? But he's looking for a hidden pylon. He's done 0 scouting so far, by the way, guys. He does not know that his opponent is... Well, not one-basing him, but his opponent's doing something weird. And Classic also does not know that Bunny is doing something weird. Now, Bunny might have just gone into a factory expand, which would not be weird. Bunny's going into a full-on 1-1-1. That is weird. So they're both doing weird things. By the way, thank you, Houseless Gamer, for the 30 months. They're both doing odd things. I do not know which odd thing works out better. Do not ask me. I have no idea what's going to happen. I just know what I'm seeing here. Which is that Classic is going for a Dark Shrine. All of his important tech buildings successfully hidden from this Reaper. This Reaper is trying to scout literally every inch of the map, and it managed to perfectly snake its way around the actual important tech. Like, you couldn't have done that if you tried, you know? It's like getting your door caught on a handle as you're walking by. It's just like, what? And the Reaper died. So, yeah, it's great. Nexus gets the recalled probes, so Classic is on 2 bases. Should he be found, he is no doubt still in trouble. But he's not been found at all. The proxies haven't been found, the Nexus hasn't been found. Bunny's 1 base is looking pretty bad. It's just, there's more of a kill move with this, right? Like, disregard what could happen at minute 10 or 11. Like, don't even care about that. Classic has a bigger kill move. Bunny's going, oh my god, I did this earlier. Bunny is going for the What Am I drop into Thor push. No proxy, by the way, which the proxy is definitely better, but also riskier. But anyways, so the kill move is better and faster for Classic. Dark Templars, Invisible Men, you know how it goes. Bunny also has a feisty unit composition when it's actually out, but it takes forever to get there. It has to walk across the map, and then he just has the disadvantage of having to have scans. So unless he wants to add a Raven into the mix, which is a lot of gas, even with cheapened gas count, I just don't think it's going to work out. First scan is used on the Warp Prism. Oh, it did see the DT. It injured the DT, but didn't kill it, and that is the only scan that Bunny has. He's going to try and transfer over to build a Raven, which, because it is a cheaper gas cost, thank goodness for the patch, right? He will be able to afford, but he certainly won't be able to afford an additional Liberator or a second Thor, right? Which means that Classic, even if his DTs eventually got cleaned up here, they're already doing enough damage anyways, would have plenty of time to respond to this Thor drop. The What Am I drop also being responded to rather well. Observer is available because there's a Warp Prism, right? And Bunny, I mean, you bet on the wrong horse. Like, this is just a build order win almost. Kind of. Knowledge is power. If there was knowledge about this, then Bunny might not have lost. So that's why I don't want to call it a build order loss, but yeah. 11 SCVs go down. Bunny can't mule. He has to have scans. Well, he has a Raven, so it's really up to him. The problem with the Raven is that it can't be in multiple places at once. So maybe he mules, maybe he holds on to it. I don't know. What Am I drop got picked off in the middle of the map by the looks of it. Medevac did not die, so it just abandoned its cargo. Try and get some damage done. Classic, as I was saying, has had some additional time to actually prep for this Thor push. Was that time enough? Goes after the Raven, gets the snipe, and we know how important that is, right? DTs, one at a time, will eventually kill Bunny. There's actually no win victory. There's no victory here. There's no win condition for Bunny. I don't know what he's actually trying to do now. Yeah, there you go. He's eventually acknowledges it too. GG, what a weird game that was. That is 1 in a million. Let's go to game 2. Funky game number 1 over. Now moving on to Ancient Cistern. In the top right, we have Classic. In the bottom left, it is Bunny. They both decided to go for some really weird cheese to start the series off. Kind of thinking the same thing. Problem was that Bunny's actually hit later. And that is a weird sentence, because don't forget that Classic got the Nexus. That wasn't the main focal point, because the DTs are so much more important, but he had a Nexus. And yet somehow the 1 base Thor drop, that's a later all-in. It's one of the latest ones I guess you can really do. Because even if it was proxied, it just takes forever. And the gamble is that the Protoss player is defending against some like type of factory expand shenanigans, while getting a typical 2-base setup themselves. So yeah, it's not the fastest attack, but Protoss also don't get particularly fast units. You know, they don't get a lot of them very quickly. So that's the gamble that Bunny was taking. But then to go up against someone who went for DTs was just bad luck, really. Classic. I don't think he could have lost that game. It would have required some real throws to lose that game. Maybe if he loses the Dark Shrine and then Bunny's attack commences? Even then, there's so much time. There's so much time that Classic can buy because he has 2 Nexus. So yeah, just unlucky for Bunny. Probably not going to happen again, so Bunny could roll the dice, could take the gamble to once again go for a 1 base attack, but he won't. It's a regular 1 Rax expand. Classic, actually scouting this time, knows about it. Barely saves his own probe. And he's going to go for his own Classic 1 gate expand. That first game happened so quickly that I'm kind of still digesting it a little bit. But we are moving into now a very typical TVP setup. And so with this now, I am starting to wonder what I would have said at the beginning of this series about who I think will win. And we got the time to talk about Classic being one of the more promising Protoss in this matchup, but didn't really give my opinions on who I thought was better off in this series. And now even as I think about it, I really can't say. Classic with already a game under his belt, you know, like that should lean me to his favor. But, I don't know, it was such a weird game. Doesn't happen very often like that. So, in a more typical TVP, who do I favor? I guess, gut reaction, I would say Bunny. Haven't checked their history, and there's some other factors like Bunny not having... It feels like a particularly great time. He kind of is like on a bit of a up and down situation right now in the last 6 months. He's hot, he's cold, he's hot, he's cold, he's hot, he's cold. In Classic, I think primarily my argument against him is that PvT is extraordinarily difficult right now. You know, otherwise I have no problems with his style of play or his mechanics or anything like that. He is, again, one of the more promising Protosses. He's kind of come into the spotlight once again, as he was once upon a time one of the best, if not the best Protoss in the world before he went to military. But the spotlight's kind of broken. It's on a dimmer and it's really dimmed because he just can't seem to get like a high rank in a tournament, which happens, right? But then also TVP remains extraordinarily difficult for many players. But anyways, 2 Adepts go into the natural, don't get a whole lot done, actually gonna get punished. Reaper and Hellion great at chasing. Classic is going into Blink. He's also adding on a total of 3 gateways. So he's not going into a 4 gate. He's going to go into 4 gases as well, so going to pretty quickly move on into Colossus. So this is a more macro style of play, defensive play style. And once Bunny realizes this, if he realizes it, he'll feel pretty comfortable moving out whenever he deems appropriate, right? So 7-minute timing is what people are talking about as being very difficult for the Protoss to hold against. Because even if they literally defend to that point, they're like 7-minute timing, gotta defend against this, everything on the defense of that timing, they still have trouble against it. The Raven in particular being, you know, very brutal. If you're gonna go into Colossus, the Raven takes away the Colossus power. Do you have what you need? Otherwise, question mark. But it is definitely Colossus. Bunny still does not know that for a fact. He has not seen the gases, he has not seen the Robo or the Robotics Bay, but he has seen still no 3rd base. And the longer that 3rd base takes to go down, the more that A, you worry about an all-in, of course. Or B, you think, okay, they're going for a conservative 2-base style of play. There are some other things that Classic could be doing, right? The 4-gate's scary, sure, but then there's also a chance that he's going into some type of like fast storm even, just to confuse the Terran. But those are pretty the basic 2 options, I would say. 4-gate or Colossus. With that 3rd timing being what it is. Now, Classic does have 3 gateways, which means that if he wants to, he can warp in a decent amount of Stalkers and actually go for the attack, which is exactly what he's doing. He could already have his Nexus on the way. Except, he's building all these Stalkers. So the Stalkers jump in. Bunny was preparing for a defense. Again, not quite sure if it was going to be a 4-gate or a 3-gate or what, but... At 3 gates is not going to be quite enough to overpower the Terran, so Bunny a little ignorant of what was actually happening, still manages to get that decent enough defense. Most importantly, making sure to keep that stim running. That is the most important thing. It sucks that he lost his tank, but I would say that stim not being sniped is actually a better feeling for the Terran player. That's my argument. Maybe the Protoss disagrees. That's fine. Obviously, Classic decided to jump after that tank instead of trying to jump after the tech lab. Both were options, I think. You could snipe both of them for a similar sacrifice. But yeah, now Bunny can actually do his attack and when he wants to do the attack as opposed to waiting for stim, which really does get awkward. You still build up units while you wait for stim, so the attack's still okay, but yeah, the timing's very off. Raven also went for some auto turret harassment, right? That's done a little bit in terms of resource trades. Classic, a little favorable, but remember his very delayed third Nexus. It's not that, you know, Bunny's not exactly much better off on the economy, but as far as that scaling goes, it's a bit different between Terran and Protoss, isn't it? The Stalkers are just trying to do what they can. Gonna find a bunker, no salvage. They're gonna see a suspicious lack of army units as well, so he should know that he's about to be dropped or attacked somewhere. This drop actually remains out of his field of vision. That is amazing. And brutal. Classic having no idea that 16 Marines were headed towards his probes. Gonna lose a good chunk of them before he even reacts. Cancels the gateways, realizing those are goners anyways. Trying to do the damage that he can on the side of the map. He brought his Colossus over. What the hell? Okay, well, that is a bold move. That is a bold move. He must have already been moving his Colossus over by the time he realized the army was not big enough, right? Like 100%. So that was the second Colossus that just popped. Timing of this is extraordinarily awkward. Classic takes way more damage than Bunny did. And Classic, well, he's pretty much dead, actually. He's dead. He's dead. Half the worker counts, plus account for mules. Army supply not exactly looking super great. He does have his 2 Colossus still up and running, but not protected by very much. Doesn't have charge, doesn't have upgrades, doesn't have a lot of gateways, not that he needs them. He can't afford to use them. Oh, and he still have a Raven. So these Colossus are actually extra useless, so it's great. Classic choosing to be as aggressive as he was, I could actually see being very clever. Before we just, you know, all point and laugh at Classic. That was unfortunate. He didn't get the scout in time in terms of how much army was at home for Bunny to say, oh shit, I'm about to be dropped. Because he definitely did, but I think the Warp Prism with the Colossus was already in transit, right? So that was just unfortunate timing. But imagine if Bunny didn't immediately load up 16 Marines and 2 Medivacs. Imagine he does wait for a push instead. You know, was busy unsieging his tanks and filling out his supply. Then Classic can be a real bully. The Warp Prism provides the movement speed for the Colossus that would otherwise be lacking. Before Vikings come into play. Whew, okay, Warp Prism saved. And then the Stalkers have their own mobility in the blink, right? So you would have just bullied the Terran player as long as possible. I don't think it would have lasted very long, to be clear, but it would have been pressure from the Protoss to keep the Terran on the back foot. And instead, Bunny had 16 Marines going for a backstab. It happens, right? Classic supply is not as bad as I thought it would be. He actually recovered his probe count fairly quickly, but it doesn't matter. Bunny's army supply almost double that of his Protoss opponent. He still has the Raven for the double interference matrix, and just to make sure that he wins, he pulls the SCVs. With the SCVs necessary, probably not, but whatever. Interference matrix actually on the Warp Prism, which means it can't micro, but 3 Colossus are still standing strong. This is one hell of an almost defense for a guy who was basically dead, but he is dead. GG. Good attempts. The old college try, right? But Bunny is gonna take game 2. And now the series is tied up 1-1. The top left we have Classic. Bottom right of Gressfon, it is Bunny. We did get a normal start to the last game, but still very abrupt ending. Very clear who was the victor. Pretty quickly into the game, minute 7. I feel like someone asked me a question, and I went to go answer it. Real quick, how do you change your in-game color? Okay, that's what I thought it was. So it must have been when I first person viewed. It's white. It is in your settings. The only reason I'm actually going over this right now is because I've actually gotten that question a decent amount. And this is one of the more visible things that I do casting the GSL replay, so I will point it out to you. If you go into colors, you can just choose your color. So when I press vision for casting, it gives them my color. Which is actually not the best for casting, because it completely removes the name. But, you know, who cares? What am I, professional? Get out of here. And white has always been my favorite color for StarCraft. I think it's a baller color for Brood War Terran. I think it looks super dope. StarCraft 2, it's just okay, but yeah. I will also be playing a bit of Brood War over the next few weeks, something I have not done in a very long time because the Brood War community is not particularly friendly. And it's a hard game. But I will be playing it because I was asked to cast it at Gamers 8. Gonna dust off the old Brood War casting, man. I haven't done that in years. I think I did a little bit when Remastered came out, but haven't touched it. And to brush up on my knowledge too, because I'm still stuck with a lot of old school Brood War knowledge, you know? I can impress the casuals with my knowledge about the SK Terran style. Which is actually basically what people still do in TVZ, I guess, but like there's a lot more nuance than just that. Was the internet even invented when Brood War came out? That's a good question. The timeline of great discoveries, there's Brood War and then there's the internet. Starting those Atosa streams. Yes, when I look forward to casting professional StarCraft Brood War players, my go-to fountain of knowledge is Artosis' stream. I'm gonna be casting, I'm gonna be like, so what do you think about this move? And I'm like, I don't know, but I do know at this point in time, Artosis will be getting a lot of spam. What do you think about the Protoss going into carriers? I don't know much, but I know Protoss is really broken. Anyhow. Another normal TVP opener, which I think Classic deserves a second shot at really actually performing this opener. He didn't really get to do what he wanted in the last game. Double Adept harassment yet again. Now this was punished pretty quickly, pretty harshly in the last game, but you can see now that it does cause a lot of problems. The Reaper is, you know, could be kind of helpful back at home, but it did go across the map, decides to go in for a couple of probes, finds a couple of probes, and does get the scout. But it's not going to get a secondary scout, and that's a little more important. Great, you know, it's Twilight Council. Not good that you don't know if it's a Dark Shrine or if it's a 4-gate. And the 4-gate usually is the bigger problem in professional games. Bunny's still having trouble with these Adepts, too. I mean, Classic now getting the opportunity to be an annoying mosquito with them is like, yeah, hell yeah, it's always what I wanted to do. Or as opposed to the last game, you know, he was just kind of shut down early on. He really does get to be the most annoying, pesky Protoss player. 2 Adepts will even live. They might even scout the trajectory of the medevac. Okay, they didn't do that, but still. Very nicely done there by Classic, who hopefully is paying attention to his mineral lines. Bunny is adding on a particularly fast armory. This small addition does cost him a pretty penny, but it does ensure a little more annoyance to the Widowmine drop. So, getting some revenge for the Adepts bullying his natural mineral line. Widowmines are going to pop off, kill 3 probes by the looks of it. Oh, they went for a Stalker instead. That is the higher value grab. And since he was so close to the Robo, he figured it best be pick up and leave moments. Perhaps if he was in the main base and he saw no Robo, he would have left them for a potential second shot. But yeah, especially as the medevac was not in danger, that's usually a good option to pick him up, even if you do have that armory. So, well, in total, the armory has not really impacted very much. Bit of a disappointment there. The medevac will get a second chance at dealing even more damage. Classic. Oh, I mentioned this. I'm glad I mentioned it so I can look smart. There are basically the two biggest options off of the Twilight Council opener are going to be that 4-gate or the 4-gas macro, which is more popular nowadays than the fast third base low gas style of play, which is still my favorite style to watch and play, but it's not popular right now. And it's probably not popular because it's not good. That's how that works. Feedback just revealed the presence of a High Templar. If they didn't see the High Templar, the Templar Archives, but I believe it did. Woodamine Drop will not get a second shot. But yeah, it's important that Bunny gets that scout because if forced to default assume something, the 4-gate's right out. No pressure. And then what else could it be? A lot of the time, it's 4 gases, slower third base, and into a robotics bay. So pretty important that Bunny got that scout again. He now knows that his opponent's going into fast storm, so he can respond appropriately. Now, you might be saying, okay, the response is fast Ghost Academy, right? Well, you do want to emphasize the Ghost Academy, but you don't want to just, like, react harshly. Because ghosts are expensive. The Ghost Academy would also kind of mess up your build order. It's also costs some amount of money and gas. And their presence doesn't necessarily like stop the attack if there is an attack from Classic anyways, like in its tracks. You might still have the problem of dealing with many charge lots. Oh, nicely done by Classic. He had that observer right there the entire time. And he waited. He pounced. So yeah, Classic. He's got High Templars on the defense. He could go into an immediate counterattack if the defense goes well. And then Bunny, yeah, if he has a couple of ghosts, will be better off against the storms, but he might still be overwhelmed by the charge lots. And that's where SimCity is going to help out. That's where making sure that you're moving over into Wood of Mines. If you were building tanks initially, you move over to Wood of Mines to help out against that as well. And you do make sure that your medevac production is pretty keen so that you can heal through a lot of the storms. It's not just about getting to ghosts and being the end-all be-all. It's not. There's still the factor of the many zealots and their potential for us around as well. I do think Bunny is okay pushing out, but he'd have to be very careful. And that's exactly why. He needs to make sure that he's tracking where the Warp Prism with the High Templars were, and he didn't track it. He didn't know where it was coming from. Came from the south. And Classic just got a amazing defense and can do the counterattack that I was talking about. I don't think Bunny was necessarily in the wrong to be perusing, to be engaged on the map, but you had to be very careful. And unfortunately, he was not careful enough. So he is at a significant supply deficit. Now, if he does defend, Bunny will have great technology and great upgrades. So there is still a chance that he recovers despite what the supply says. And Bunny is looking for that exact recovery. Turtling up here on 2 bases, looking to work with some SimCity, trying to target fire High Templars. He might have thought that Adept was a High Templar, actually. I actually think that was the case. There's no way that a Terran player would bring 5 Marauders over to try and snipe an Adept. I can tell you that much. High Templars and Adepts, I guess, both were like a robe thingy.
Resubscription received.
I understand it, but that is unfortunate.
Right, Captain.
You think you grabbed the High Templar, you grabbed an Adept. Worst case scenario. Frog on News, Cycle Vape, thank you for the 24 months. Bunny does survive the worst part of the attack. Before he had Ghost, immediately after he lost a chunk of units, and yeah, that was basically what he needed, right? So he's bought that time, he's got his army, he's got his medevacs, Wood of Mines, Ghosts, and his economy set up, although that's a very temporary thing. High Templars going for drops means that they're not on the front lines defending, although we do still have some High Templar managing to grab a couple of storms, but no High Templars that I can see now. Yeah, no, here we go. Backup High Templars, very important. I actually don't see too many EMPs now. It looks like Bunny has expended all of his EMPs, thinking that the High Templars were done and gone with. They were not. A couple more storms helping out here. Windmine's popping off on the charge lots. Tank helping out now that the charge lots are gone. But it looks like Bunny just simply does not have the numbers. Stalkers aplenty left over. High Templars coming from behind. Colossus transition perfectly timed from Classic as well. And Bunny is once again on the retreat, trying to escape, but the High Templars chasing him down. Everything very injured. And Bunny on the brink of losing his best of 3. He's going to hold on for a little while longer, but this is not nearly as hopeful as it was previously when I said, okay, maybe he can hold against the charge lot storm attack, and then his upgrades will do him well. Then his EMPs will do him well. Not the situation here. He just took a straight-up bad attack with nothing to show for it. Classic has recovered his upgrade deficit. He's recovered what we'd call a tech deficit, if you will. The High Templars being directly countered by the EMPs. And now he has a very complete Protoss army. And Bunny, his army's not complete because he doesn't have supply. You know, if it was 50 supply more, that's a great bio army, but you don't have it. So 50 supply difference seems like it'll be the nail in the coffin for Bunny as Classic goes sharping around for the fight. The bio is not even fully recovered from the earlier battles. And the Vikings have not been re-hotkeeyed by the looks of it. They're microing with the bio. Yeah. I don't think they're going to take down the Colossus anyways, as the Stalkers now focus fire them. But yep. Bunny going to be sent down to the losers match, or the victory challenge, as someone suggested in chat. And he will be facing TY in a TVT, which I do think that Bunny would be favored, just based off of who's been the pro gamer more recently. But we'll see. Classic definitely got this game wrapped up. There you go, GG. Classic moves on to the winners match to face off against Maru, which will be a much more difficult task there. Classic winning against Bunny. Yeah, all right. Classic winning against Maru? Probably not. But we'll see. We'll see if I'm wrong. Let's go. So now the winners match. Maru in the top right of Royal Blood. Classic in the bottom left. Classic defeated Bunny 2-1. The games that... No, I can't summarize it, actually. No, I can't summarize the last best of 3. If you didn't watch Maru versus... Classic versus Bunny, you need to watch it to understand it. It was weird. It was odd. Didn't really give me a good indication of whether or not Classic was actually... like, the best at PvT. And I think you'd have to be literally the best at PvT to defeat Maru. Maru is the solid bet to win the entire thing. He's a solid bet even when he's overseas, despite his performance in overseas tournaments. For GSL in particular, he's almost a no-brainer. He's going to go on a 7 GSL win streak. It's going to be awesome. And in particular, when it comes to this matchup, Maru should be heavily favored. Now, Classic has had the opportunity, to only practice PvT for his GSL group. So there's something to keep in mind, right? That's why we all like GSL. It's a different type of tournament. It's one that's preparation-based instead of just kind of who's the best for these 3 days. And Classic could do a lot with that. Certainly refining his general PvT skills leading up to this group, but then also developing some sniper builds, if he can. This is where, though, I have to mention something that I've recently figured out. It's actually pertinent. Usually I would not bring this up because it's kind of mean. But Classic apparently doesn't really have a lot of friends in StarCraft. I don't know if he has friends in general. I assume he does. But for StarCraft, he's actually often not like hanging out with the other Korean guys when they go overseas. So when I brought up that he might be trying to figure out some snipe builds against his opponents, I'm actually wondering if he has anyone to even play against. I'm sure he's not disliked to the point that if he asked someone, they'd be like, no, F you. Like, that doesn't sound right. But it might be a little uncomfortable for Classic to find Terran partners to train with when, 1, 3 of the Terrans that you would train with are in your group, and then 2, you're not actually that friendly with a lot of them. You know, and again, I'm saying this as like, not that he's a bad guy or anything like that, just that he apparently just doesn't, you know, we see like Maru and Beyond, for instance, they're all buddy-buddy, they're all cute together, right? Like, there's nothing like that for Classic. But anywho, Classic has once again decided to just dive deep into the mud pit and go for a good old wrestle. He has gone for a 2-gate opener with a proxied gateway and then a nexus on the right side of the map this time as opposed to the left side. Maru has also gone into, surprisingly enough, a 1-1-1. I say surprisingly because Maru would have been able to witness this series played out, Classic versus Bunny, And he would have seen on Royal Blood Classic going for a very cheesy build. And Bunny losing to it a lot because he went for a 1-base build. And Maru was like, whatever, I can do better. It's fine. Could you, though? It is a slightly different opener from Classic. It's not about the proxied hidden technology like in his series versus Bunny. It's about the aggression right off the bat. And I think Maru was caught a little off guard. You can see him struggling to ensure the safety of his high ground, but Bunker, Supply Depots, finally, he is secure. His 1-1-1 setup might have initially been going into like a Hellion drop or something. But since he was being proxy gated, he had to change his mind. So don't know if it's a response or this is what he wanted to do in the first place, but I imagine it's a response. But I like the response. The proxy Banshee as opposed to just building a medevac and trying to get the Hellions across the map. Yeah, that makes so much more sense. However, it does look like Classic has picked up on the fact that this is a complete 1-1-1 build, not a factory expand. I don't know actually if he's picked up on it, to be honest. I have no idea. But he might have. And if he has, a Stargate is a really nice response to a potential proxied starport or just regular starport sending out starport units. But he also might be thinking about playing Phoenix aggressively, which is why I'm like, I don't know if he knows. His Stargate's also on his Nexus at the gold base, so it's not exactly close to defending his main. I don't know. I don't know what's going through these players' heads at this point in time. For Maru, you know, he's known for a long time that it was a proxy gateway. He does not know about the Nexus, but if he was watching the games of Classic vs. Bunny, then he should know there's a real possibility that Nexus has been taken. Oh, there you go. There you go. Scanned. Okay. Like I'm kind of on the right track as a, you know, in regards to reading their thought processes. This is actually not even a surprise anymore, guys. If you're like, oh my god, Classic took both gold bases, this actually happens all the fucking time. Sorry. I curse. But it really does. It happens all the time. The Phoenix actually were used to be aggressive. This is what I was bringing up. Phoenix is used to... Whoa! Hey! The Stalker should be attacking right now, not moving! Oh no, the Banshees arrived at the perfect time. Classic destroyed the two big bad units, the tanks with those Phoenix lift, and he had a lot of Stalkers left over, which would have been able to kite the Marines as they did not have stim. But he was not paying attention for that split second because the Banshees arrived, so he loses a bunch more Stalkers, a lot more health on his Stalkers as well. Now, Maru's not exactly in a great spot as he does actually get chased down. Stalkers do still outrange those Marines, but like, what the hell is going to happen now? Maru's other Banshee comes across. Wait, is that his third Banshee? That is his third Banshee. One to the Nexus, one to the probes, one to the main base. And Maru is winning currently. But with Classic's 3-base setup and 2 of them being gold bases, I mean, his road to recovery is a bit faster. You go, SCV. You go get him. Get him. Get him. Starport not even being seen, in case Classic wanted to take that down, or even see that another Banshee was on the way. That would actually be a good scout. The probes have traversed the world and are finally going to return home, bloody and bruised, and many of their brethren dead. It's actually a little PTSD right there. It's kind of sad, actually. But the other probes on the gold base are fine. Shield battery helped him out. Phoenix popped out eventually, too. And I would say that Maru is still the one in trouble. Banshee actually gets discovered. That was nicely timed by Classic. He has one tank once again to defend the natural, but he realizes that yet again, that defense is not solid, not with the Phoenix being able to pick it up. Maru's still in a lot more trouble as he still has no second command center. If he had a second command center finishing, I'd have a much tougher time deciding how this game's gonna go. But with Maru only literally on one base, I don't think his one base all-in will have the power it needs. Because it's actually a similar situation to Classic versus Bunny, which is that the Terran's attack, it has to be consolidated. You know, everything has to move as a unit. And if everything's moving as a unit, it's protected, but then it can't kill multiple bases very quickly, can it? You know, you can go after your gold, but then they mine from the main. You go after the main, they mine from the gold. You know, like, there's a lot more time on Classic's side, although he is being, unfortunately, aggressive. He might be reading this very wrong. His Phoenix have done a lot, but they have not done any scouting. So he might be thinking a command center is about to reach the natural, and I need to stop it. That is not the case. He needs to start defending against this one base all-in, and instead he keeps bleeding off units. Tracking the army is fantastic, but trying to actually engage is exactly what Maru wants him to do. Classic bled off a decent number of Stalkers and a couple of Phoenix just in the last 30 seconds. Thing is that he does need to start accumulating. He's not there yet. He has time on his side with so many bases taken, but he does actually need to start producing army units. And he just lost them, and now he's going to lose another production facility. And Maru might still win with this one base all in. It absolutely is the case that he might still win. I think Classic did not read the situation fast enough, appropriately enough. And then add on top of that all this Banshee harassment because he never scouted the starport. There would have been at least 2 less Banshees, perhaps 3, if the starport was discovered earlier. Classic's main base is something that he very much needs. All of his production is there. Maru with the one base all in is actually going to win this game. He takes out the most saturated base, then he goes after the most production, and now that's all that's left is a saturated gold base that's giving Classic minerals, but what do you do with the minerals? Very unfortunate. I think Classic could have done a much better job buying time to try and actually get the charge. And then if you give him, I don't know, 3 warp-ins, so let's say 12 charge lots, plus the Stalkers, plus the Phoenix. Still is a little sketch, but I think he would have won. Especially if he got some decent, you know, wraparounds on the tanks and whatnot. Gonna try and break up the main, but Maru was prepared for that. Classic's last desperate attack is not going to win him this game. GG. Maru manages to pull one out of his hat, in my opinion. I feel like he was in the worst overall position, but Classic kind of overplayed the aggression. Yeah. That's pretty sad, because that was one of those games where it is the most likely that you win against Maru. Not just because of the situation that it ended up being, but because it just was a weird game. All right? Like, you don't want to play Maru in a straight-up game. You finally got a weird one against him, and you still lose it. So that sucks. Let's see if Classic can, I don't know, fix it for the rest of the series. In the bottom right, we have Classic. In the top left, it is Maru. The favorite to win the group, the match, the group, the stage, the tournament. I think I got everything. And if he wins it by 2-0-2-0ing his initial group, that would not surprise me. If he managed to win GSL without losing a map, that actually would not surprise me. It'd be kind of a funny bookend to StarCraft 2 in Korea, too. Not to depress anyone out there, but as we are witnessing some of the final moments of, I suppose, well-established Korean scene, it is potentially, like, poetic, I guess, maybe. Bittersweet, certainly. To think that we could have had, back in 2011, Nest-T dominate GSL, not losing a single map in the entirety of his run. And then in 2023, Maru doing something similar. That'd actually be kind of, yeah, bittersweet. People thought that Nest-T would lose his EVZ or 2 for sure, too, though. Like, it's also a very interesting, like, swap of situations, which is that Nest-T did it back when no one knew what the hell they were doing in StarCraft 2. Like, everyone was just worse. It happens. It was the case. But he had a much wider field of players. There was a bigger bracket stage, more groups, more players, and the depth of talent was also larger. Maru comes in 2023, and everyone's really refined their skill to a very sharp point, right? Some of the best players are still the Korean players, but there's far less. So it'd be kind of neat. But I certainly am not talking about this particular game right here, right now. Classic has gone for an expansion, but is also proxying a pylon. And it's going to be found. The good news is it's found before a real committal to the technology. So Classic doesn't waste resources canceling a robo or something. A Stargate. And he doesn't reveal his plans. Should Maru have seen a Stargate building and then it got canceled, he might go, oh, okay, well, you're still going to go into Stargate. He actually has no idea what he's doing. However, as far as a later proxy pylon being found, so presumably a 2-base pylon, right? It's probably a Stargate. So Maru might already be figuring that one out. It's not proxied, though, a little less lethal. Gets that confirmation on the Stargate. Maru's high ground command center is already a safe call anyways. But that also still safe against the Stargate opener, as he only has one base to really care for. People, like, arguing against the possibility of Maru's flawless run is just like, it's a useless conversation, isn't it? Because one, no one can tell the future. But two, again, everyone thought the same for an ST. There is no one in 2011 who was like, nah, an ST, he's gonna, you know, not lose a single map. Okay, Artosis might have, because he was, you know, he was funny about an ST, but only to be funny. He wouldn't actually believe it. So, yeah. I'm not saying it will happen, but it would be a very bittersweet bookending of StarCraft 2 in Korea to have kind of the beginning, all the people who don't know what they're doing, but a lot of them getting wiped out by this one guy, and then the end of it, which is everyone knows what they're doing, but there's not many of them, and they get wiped out by this one guy. So Classic's opener not really going according to plan, but it's not really the worst either. You still have the proxy pylon up even, so you can do a little bit of harassment later on if the game goes that long. Classic's trying to be, you know, a little clever, trying to use very few units to their utmost potential, but Cyclones are pretty good. Cyclone and a tank now available too, like that wasn't going to last very much longer. What is Maru doing? If we actually look at his setup, he's got 2 bases. Okay, fine, whatever. He's got 1-1-1, fine, whatever. But he's building still tanks and a medevac. If this was a Raven, I would not be really wondering about it. But with a medevac, this really screams aggression. So Maru is going to try and do a 2-tank Marine Cyclone push-out? Drop? I'm actually not sure what this is. Classic does have some units in the middle of the map that will see something incoming and be like, oh, what the hell? Does he have the units to defend against it? This is only some of the army. This could just be like a clearing squad. Doesn't know about the tanks and the medevac. The cat's butt is in the way of the monitor. Classic, do you have a shield back to the natural? No, he does not. And he's also invested into a lot of technology that is not ready yet. Blink's not ready. Robotics Bay isn't ready. Stasis Trap will not affect this battle. The scan was perfect. And this attack is actually looking very, very scary. Maru is delaying his stim and combat shields significantly to do this attack, but it does seem to be working. SCVs are in the repair of the tank as well, ensure that it will live. And now we have the very desperate probe pull all before the shield battery is done. As it finishes, immediately pops the overcharge, but it is too little too late. The tank's not even friendly firing right now. One of them finally does go down, but Maru has definitely done enough damage. No doubt about that. Classic gonna get a little bopped for game number 2. And that will be a clean 2-0 for Maru as he heads into the next stage of GSL. GG. Classic is going to wait for the winner of TY versus Bunny to see who he has to face to move on in GSL. Let's go ahead and get to that lower bracket series. And now into the elimination match. Whoever loses here is out of GSL for the season. In the bottom right, we do have the one and only TY. And in the top left, we have Bunny. Wouldn't surprise me if this played out rather similar to the TY versus Maru match that started off this group. TY probably will still play a bit more of a slower mech-y style, if he doesn't actually go into mech. More about pinpointing the exact weakness of your opponent and then striking when the opportunity is golden, as opposed to trying to pry them open, you know, force them. Bunny, he's a forcer. You know, he's going to be the multitasker, he's going to be the YOLOer. He's going to try and force opportunities and occasionally be wrong. and create problems for himself with it, which is the style that Maru was playing against TY as well. Of course, Maru didn't actually make problems for himself, or at least not big enough problems that he lost any of the games. Maru did 2-0 TY. But I don't think that Bunny, even though he's very, very good as well, he's not Maru. So I don't think Bunny, given the almost exact same scenario as, let's say, game number 1, where TY went for that Banshee play and then Maru was like dropping every which way, I don't think Bunny has the same outcome. He has slightly worse drops, he has slightly worse macro, he has slightly worse positioning, and he has slightly later battle cruisers, right? And then he dies. So I think this is very winnable for TY. If he was actually pretty strong against Maru, he should be pretty strong against Bunny. But I'd still favor Bunny. That's what I said in the last series. Just that Bunny, you know, he has been the pro longer recently. It's probably a better way to put that. But the TY went to the military. He had 2 years, basically, where he wasn't playing StarCraft 2 full-time. It's not 2 years, but let's just round it up. And then his first performance back into the pro gaming field, he lost the qualifier, where Bunny has at least been consistent in all the GSLs. So, you know, based off of history, Bunny should be favored. But TY is particularly good at this matchup, so I think this is probably one of the best groups for TY to advance. But anyways, let's get into the actual nitty-gritty. We got a bunker being built as Bunny realized he had an opportunity to be a big old bully in the early game. TY only going for a Marine opener. Did he go for like a gasless 1x expand? Anyways, meant that the bunker was not punished particularly quickly. It does get canceled. The SCV did die after all, but that could have been a little more alarming. Now we have TY properly secure. His factory should be fairly quick since he hasn't invested any gas into his unit production. Gets a Reaper as well. Nice positioning on the Marines. His factory finishes up. Helene is on the way. Of course, Bunny's factory was still much faster. His starport much faster. He is going to be the more aggressive one, but his command center is only halfway done. So TY should be getting, let's say, a 2 to 3 SCV lead and have, I'm not going to say no issues dealing with an attack, but should be able to respond to anything that Bunny throws in at this point in time. Like, Bunny is going to go for a medevac drop with a tank. Okay. I mean, I could obviously still do damage. But TY is getting to the grand setup that is the 1-1-1 with a Tech Lab soon, I suspect. Actually, he went for 2 Helene instead of just 1. One would already be, like, arguably a mistake. It's a very critical mistake, but yeah. 2 Hellions are useless. Like, the Reapers actually are not a problem. He killed one anyways. So the 2 Hellions really aren't adding a whole lot. Instead, he could have gotten faster into a Tech Lab and into a Cyclone, because he definitely has the gas and the minerals for it. I'm only bringing this up, this very detailed... this very small detail, because Bunny is coming with a fairly fast attack of his own. So what TY has right here, right now, is what's important. I guess his Banshee will be surprisingly well-timed. It's a tank and a Cyclone, so the Banshee will reign supreme. Surprise Banshee, no one expects it. 4 Marines. Oh, gonna be microed. A little fancy. But yeah, the Banshee is actually perfect defense against this. That is funny. The 2 Hellions still aren't very helpful, but the Banshee actually was great. Great timing. Alright then. You just don't see that happen. Bunny's not going to give up on his drop. Now, I mentioned that Maru was seeing Classics games and should have some knowledge of what Classics shenanigans were. Well, Bunny also was able to watch Maru's games versus TY, so he knows what TY was weak against. And so he is going to try and continue to abuse his multitasking and his drop potential. His tank does go down, unfortunately, and TY, almost getting the medevac as well, does successfully push back this aggression. Bunny, I think the continued aggression was warranted. You know, like, I really don't have any qualms with the fact that he did this, but unfortunately, went a little sideways for him. TY successfully defends and is moving on to a 3cc setup with a factory on the way, so he is going into mech. He does have an 8-worker lead, because he had the command center much faster than his opponent, and then that follow-up tank drop did nothing. It went for more of an anchor attack, right? Something that was a bit slow, but hopefully killed maybe a reactor or a tank or a cyclone, as opposed to heading into the mineral line to try and kill any number of SCVs. So these SCVs have remained untouched. So the worker count is substantially in favor of TY, as he also settles his third CC as fast as he would like, immediately after it turns into an orbital. That's an ideal situation for a TVT, but especially for a mech player. The longer that the opposing Terran can stop you from getting 6 gases, the more worried you get. But even as Bunny moves out, I really don't think he has that much to really punish TY. He's getting his own third CC at a pretty similar time, so that's not too bad, but the early game is affecting the supply right now. TY taking down a potential pathway of his opponents. This would have to be broken again to actually let Bunny through. But Bunny is heading over to the right side. Something that TY was keen on scouting, sees the incoming army, and already has his army in position. Even gets a lock on a scan as well, looking for that Raven. Not going to grab it, but significantly weakens them for any upcoming fight. And Bunny really has to worry about that, to be honest. His Ravens are a very integral part of this push, if he plans on actually doing anything with them. Yeah, so he's gonna have to back away. Now, Bunny is kind of trying to make up for lost time. He knows that his early game aggression was almost non-existent. His mid-game aggression is not looking super promising because he still doesn't have stim. He still doesn't have all of his barracks, so he's gonna try and catch up for lost time in terms of the economy, in terms of like the foundation. 4 bases, lickety-split on location. Also a good idea because it's unlikely that TY is gonna get aggressive. He is the mech player after all. So that's a wonderful idea. I think you got double engineering bays. Yes, so we'll start those up soon as well. It's a big delay on what could be more army, but I would certainly argue that 20 or 30 more army supply would not help. Still doesn't have stim, doesn't have combat shields. Finding TY out of position would absolutely help, so that is something. TY certainly is out of position. Ravens come in from Bunny, auto turrets aplenty, interference, which is as well. TY does just kind of cautiously, simply, casually pulls back the tanks. He does often keep a very calm head with these situations. One of the most experienced pro gamers in the world. But his command center's out under fire, and he's forced to pull the SCVs. I actually don't think he had to. He's gonna lose 10 of them. Maybe he could have only lost 5 or something, but the command center is gonna get repaired, and TY does hold. The only reason that Bunny found the damage that he did was that TY was caught a little out of position. Didn't have as many tanks sieged up in position as he could have, and did not have his Vikings in position either. So Bunny can at least be happy something went his way, and he's going to try and look for more, but without that high ground vision, he can't really punish this gas geyser. 11 Vikings for TY, 9 for Bunny. Bunny might have initially been wary of TY's mass Banshee play, again thinking back to Maru versus TY earlier today, but at this point in time, very obviously, TY is playing a more typical style of mech, going into the Vikings and the tanks, actually making a stop on some Liberators for some harassment. I assume harassment. I don't think he's going to push out. He's grabbing a 4th command center right now. One that might be canceled. It'd be pretty nice for Bunny to cancel this, but nah, he's not going to get the cancel. And Bunny is still working with really no true mid-game army. Like, he's really not capable of pushing the bio issue. Maru pushed it for a very long time. He had a lot of opportunities to maybe snowball the bio army mid-game tactics, but it didn't. So he was eventually forced to move over into the starports. Bunny just had to completely skip the mid-game, basically. He's still producing bio, of course, but he's moving on to starports, and that is very much necessary. TY still with more SCVs, by the way, so the economies maybe have evened out at this point in time. But that's a lot more blue spiking. Now only the red gets up there. Not really the most important thing is both of them get settled on 4 bases. The more important thing is whether or not TY realizes his opponent is already moving over into starports. He should. TY, especially with the style of play, can actually take some time to really think through this one. Still, you know, 250 actions per minute and all that good stuff, but you can still kind of think through this one and say, okay, well, there's not a lot of pressure. The pressure in the early game didn't work. You know, what are my opponent's chances of making this actually work? Well, the biggest potential is moving over into starports prior to me. That's the way it's going to go here from 4 base TVT on out. The bio player is less a bio player and more a map control tech swap player, I guess. Something along those lines. Scans continuing to come down, finally actually scout the additional starports, but no add-ons on them, so that was a little suspicious. Those could have been 2 Vikings. But what is he waiting for? Why is he waiting for the add-ons? Is he getting into a fusion core? Is he getting into battle cruisers? That's what Maru did. Fusion core for Bunny is currently just for lib range. TY also using his own liberators defensively. I thought they'd go for some harassment. They did not. Just defensive liberators. He's getting his own upgrades even faster than the bio player. So again, bio just not really an option for Bunny in this game. Not really. He's got bio. I know these are biological units, but it's not the meat and potatoes. It's the sauerkraut on the side no one likes. It's not particularly close to actually doing damage to TY here. Bunny's siege tanks line up far away from the planetary, but what he does discover is that he has more Vikings than his opponent. TY not trying to contest the air whatsoever at this point. No missile turrets built either in case he lost out on the air war. And a missile turret right here and right here would actually be wonderful. Eventually the tanks of Bunny would move forward and clear out the side defense, but yeah, that was a quicker collapse on TY's tanks than TY was hoping for. Now his own Vikings Liberators make an appearance. Bunny not able to realize they were, where they were coming from. Does get a little surprise. His own Liberators clearing out TY's tanks on the attack. Both of them, Liberators, tanks, ditto, samesies. And now back into just primarily the Viking War. 19 for Bunny, 15 for TY. TY has the upgrades, but we know how overkill Vikings are. So it looks like Bunny's gonna win that attack anyways. No, it's 10 to 10. Nope, it's a little bit closer. It's actually very, very close. Liberators unsiege and move away. Bunny not able to advance further. TY holds on to this high ground plateau. Is now moving over to the 5th base on the front lines as well. Bunny moved out to the right side first, but he could also grab this command center. Exactly what he's doing. He does start up his 2-2 for his bio, but again, it's not the best thing that he has. It's opening up opportunities. It's fast, so if he sees an opportunity, he can take it. It's mobile. He can try and beep bop around, but generally, the real issue is whether or not you have that Viking War. Now, there's a chance that TY invests too much into the Viking War, and it's a classic swapperoo, where Bunny's like, actually, I'm going to go back in a bio, and then I'm going to overwhelm you. That could happen. But TY, as long as he has, I would say, more than 8 tanks at any given point, probably shouldn't be vulnerable to that. But it also matters where his tanks are positioned. TY not taking any chances, still building a planetary on the front lines. It's that extra protection. You could actually make an argument for making that an orbital, since he's pushing from it, he's also kind of protecting it. But I like the planetary. Ditto on Bunny's side of the map. Planetaries can't lift, though, so if they are sieged up, well, then they are probably going to die. I actually like sauerkraut as well, guys. But, I mean, next to meat and potatoes, like... This ends up being a very long game, by the way. I actually thought that TY would have a lot more momentum to work with, but no, he's kind of stuck in that the more passive turtle style of mech. He's trying to move out. I'm not calling him, I'm not saying he has a lack of killer instinct. It's just that Bunny has managed to always repel any counterattacks and continue to pressure himself. So nicely done for Bunny, who also has a stronger bank to work with. See, the resources lost, actually very similar. But I guess Bunny just got his workers on location, perhaps more orbitals slapping down mules as well. Probably happened. So Bunny has a lot of bank to work with, but if his production gets camped, we know what that means for Terran. It means game over. And that's what TY would probably mostly be looking for, is a consistent, yet gradual, very slow-paced moving forward, leaping forward of the tanks to eventually bust up Bunny's natural. And TY, not going to go for it. Just building more production, getting his command center down. Bunny kind of fearing the potential of the air army. It's actually going to grab some Thors. And Thors are kind of nice here because not only do they help out single target and splash against the number of Vikings, they're not terrible on the grounds. They're clunky. They're not, easily made. They're very expensive, but they do pack a punch. So they'll even help out sometimes on breaking tank lines. So I kind of like that, but absolutely they are not the end-all be-all of response. There's a lot more complications when it comes to building ground anti-air versus just straight-up air anti-air. You You want to be winning the Viking War at the end of the day. In these TVTs, you want to be winning the Viking War. TY did take some time to settle his right side planetary, but he is doing the gradual leapfrog forward. It's almost like comically low number of ground units. Like 2 tanks. But the Liberator's also helping out with their one-shot. It's fantastic. We do have the air battle coming in here. Wasn't expecting it, but TY thinks that he will win it. I think he's wrong about that. Bunny with a substantial Viking surplus. 30 Vikings to 11. He's got more Vikings than he needs. But he really wanted to win that fight. And TY is the one forced to retreat. Now, does this mean TY actually has the stronger ground army? I think technically yes, but his tanks are all types of spread out. Bunny scanning ahead for his Vikings, scanning the extra bases as well, seeing there's an opportunity to kill it, or just, you know, seeing how screwed he is, right? How far ahead he is. I guess now, because he's literally just running around his Vikings. But is he ahead? Is this actually deceiving? Some, kind of. Oh, TY wasn't paying attention. He thought the Vikings left. Whoops. But yeah, is this deceiving? Does TY just grab all of his ground army and then YOLO across the map? If his 4 Thors were out already, I'd actually say absolutely. I would say absolutely do that. The problem with Thors is that eventually Liberators will get sieged up in a decent number with Lib range, and then Thors are too clunky and fat and, you know, they gotta go through a choke and they go up against tanks, you know, like they just don't work as the final measure against the air war. But as a temporary measure, they're not bad. This is 1 Thor. This is not it. This is not it. This is not it. Oh, that one's it though. That was a lot of splash damage. Ooh. Oh, the Vikings landed. Hello. Bunny actually getting another base destroyed. Now the Vikings are forfeit. Don't do it. Don't do the thing. Don't do the thing. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Bunny actually did only raise half of his Vikings. Good on Bunny. Good on Bunny. I like that TY did focus fire at the Liberators before the Vikings died. At least something went well, right? But TY really needed some more Thors to really be, I think, scarier there. But his Thors are here. 6 Thors now available. He has the more mobile... Well, no, it's not mobile army. I don't even know how to put it. He has the ground mobility. Bunny's, like, not even on bio at all anymore. He's got 4 Marauders. That is it. The Liberators are the only thing stopping the advance of the Thors. Thank goodness Liberators are good at that. But they're like, they gotta be together. They gotta also have some tanks on their side too, in case the Thors do manage to get a lot of shots off. Like, if there's ever an opportunity for 6 Thors to be shooting at once, the Liberators might not be enough. So usually there's like 5 tanks helping the Liberators. This is very complicated. This is a very odd game as well, even though it's a more typical TVT than those PVTs we were seeing. But it's still kind of odd in its own right. It is a split map scenario, and Bunny has taken more bases while trying to figure out what was happening there, but he's not saturated them. So he still has a large mineral bank, but he does not have a gas bank. TY is actually level on both. He's doing pretty well. Upgrades, by the way, completely even when it comes to the mech units. Just want to throw that out there because that's been hard to track. Well, no, I was wrong. +3 armor actually finished for TY. Okay, so TY has a slight upgrade lead. He's building the potential for cyclones, which I actually like. I like the potential for emergency cyclones rather than I actually like cyclones themselves. So I like seeing the upgrade on the way. TY moving on forward, catching some of the Liberators. Oh, with a Widow Mine! And 2 Widow Mines on the Vikings! Oh my god, I didn't even notice! Oh, I was at 4th of July and I was like, there's fireworks? Like, what's happening here? Who does that? That was actually so close to being an amazing fight. Where did the Widow Mines even come from? They literally took advantage of the fact that there was no ground army for Bunny and just walked up. Is that right? What the shit? All right, TY continues to be a baller in StarCraft 2. Gets the kill on the left side base, walks away. I mean, he knows how difficult it is to win a battle against this. You know, if the Liberators get sieged up, what am I again? If the Liberators get sieged up, there's more chokes than there are open spaces on this map. And the number of Liberators is at 12, so like they're gonna be quite scary. But these Widow Mines littered around the map are actually crazy good, and there's still no repair. Bunny is dangerously close to having 1 Thor splash kill most of his army. Or 1 Widow Mine splash, either one, right? Here we go! There it is! Actually pretty poor Widow Mines. No retargeting there from TY. That was more on him. Good on Bunny to micro, of course, but TY didn't counter micro. Which is a bit odd. It's a bit odd. Missed an opportunity, perhaps. What are the army comps at this point in time? Bunny actually will probably lose the air war, right? I don't know. These Vikings are so injured. The Thors are getting shots off. The Liberators aren't sieged up yet. All of Bunny's army was injured from earlier fights. The Thors are actually getting so many shots off before the Liberators siege, but once the Liberators siege, they do dominate the skies. TY's Vikings are trying to help out as well, and they did help out. They absolutely did, but at the end of the day, it was numbers, like injured numbers versus Thors. Which, again, Thors are not the perfect response against someone who has the Viking control with Liberators. But now the Viking control is really up in the air. Like, that's a real question. Who actually is going to have the Viking control afterwards? Who has the bigger bank? We know, but the Terran players don't. They're like, what the hell's happening in this game? So they both try and dive after the air superiority. TY goes for straight up Vikings. Bunny actually invested all of his bank into like 9 more Liberators. That seems like a mistake to me. Liberator only will not win this game, shockingly. They don't even attack buildings. They literally cannot win a game. TY just has to make sure his Vikings don't clump. Which, I guess that's not really clumping, right? So they're doing fine. Lots of ground units of TY are being sacrificed to try and clear out some of these tanks so the Thors can do their job as well. But the Vikings had already won the air war. That might have been a little unnecessary for TY to even take all that damage on the ground. TY, 17 Vikings. Bunny only at 3. Bunny also out of cash just about, where TY is still with a bank, needs to spend it. But he also has 82 workers and plenty of bases actually mining. Bunny going for probably the screwed scan. Am I screwed? If this was fully saturated as a planetary, I think he might tap out there. It's new, it's fresh, he's gonna give it a shot. He's gonna try and play this one out. But unless Bunny wins the air war again. I actually wonder if Bunny should have gone into just a bio gamble. It's a gamble, it's not the best thing in the world. But maybe going into pure bio? The problem with pure bio at this time, by the way, is also that you can never get medevacs. So we know medevacs really complete the bio army. Bio without medevacs is truly tier 1. So, like, I know there's a reason he's not going for it, but I kind of wonder if that would have been a better option, because he's trying to play into a battle that he's already losing. Like, unless TY stops building Vikings, which is possible. Okay. Then Bunny shouldn't be able to catch up. But Bunny, with the last 8 Vikings on the way, will catch up. It just is that is all of his bank. That's all of his resources. So that's the last time that he'll catch up. I have no idea. These numbers are so bad. Well, this one, I guess. And this one's useless. Hellion run-bys. Kind of forgot those would be a thing. SCVs are vulnerable. Bunny has been only able to send his orbitals around recently. This one was a while ago, so it's planetary, but this is an orbital, that's an orbital, that's an orbital. That's a planetary. But now we're just talking about a lack of buildings. Like, TUI just doesn't have... sorry, Bunny doesn't have a lot of command centers. So Bunny's gonna lose a lot of his SCVs as well. Might be a slow death. But I do believe it's a death for Bunny. He's got one more potential winning engagement in him before he has to tap out. If he can win this engagement hardcore, he might have a chance. He is winning the Viking War, but... is he? Yes, actually he is. 17 Vikings to 15. TY taking a battle that he's not actually winning. No Thors or Cyclones to help out this time. Liberators for Bunny also unsieged to help out with the air war, but Bunny's supply still less than TY's. TY had the bank. He has so many bases as well. Like, Bunny trying to play whack-a-mole for the next 10 minutes is probably not how he's going to win the game. He has to get on top of TY's production. And then chase it, as it flies. And he's nowhere close to the production. The supplies have gotten a lot closer. That battle was not a wash, but it was complicated. And TY's supply is really only being held up by his worker count. So... yes, Bunny might, maybe can do it. He's kind of going for the ground tactic that I was kind of alluding to. It's not bio, it's ground Vikings. Ground Vikings against tanks. Liberator's also in the sky, still adding in that damage, of course, and TY is actually a little desperate. You can see that he can't really figure out the composition that he actually needs to hold on here. So he's gone into some Cyclones to help out. Not a bad idea. They got the mobility, especially as the bio is almost non-existent. 2 medevacs suddenly making an appearance again at 25.5 minutes. And then, yeah, the Cyclones can lock on to very important units. You know, not the Marines, not the Marauders, the Vikings and the Liberators. They can also lock on to buildings. Something to consider. It's a bit comical, but it looks like TY is going to win with an almost Cyclone army at the end of it. It's not really the Cyclones that are winning the game. It is the mass amount of bases that he has compared to his opponents. TY just getting more mining at a certain point. Ensured victory. Because otherwise it was questionable. Bunny's micing his little heart out. Yep. 7 planetary, 6 orbital for TY. It's got bases for days. Bunny probably reading into the scenario accurately. He knows he's pretty screwed, but Cyclones are kind of bad. There's a chance. The chance is almost gone now. Yep, Cyclones doing what they do best, locking on to Vikings. Hellbats clearing out tanks. And Bunny is going to be forced to tap out. GG! 26, almost 27 minutes in, and TY will win game number 1 in the lower bracket match. Bunny is now officially on his last life. Yeah. Alright, so in the bottom right, we do have TY up 1 game, and in the top left, it is Bunny sending on an SCV. So Bunny may be a little disgruntled as far as the openers of the last game, but also this is very typical in professional matchups. After a particularly long, grueling battle, it's very likely for a Terran player, and a Korean Terran player at that, to go hyper-aggressive afterwards. It's actually a thing, for sure. Which, if it's a thing, then maybe TY will be on guard against it. We'll see. TY should at least be scouting with an SCV if he is going to 1 Rax expand again. Okay, he's factory expanding. Okay. Different gas timings, though. Right? That felt a little off. Maybe I'm crazy. It doesn't matter. The point is he's not 1 Rax expanding. So if you're 1 Rax expand, to play it safe, you got to SCV scout. Which is not something that he did last game, I believe, right? So, like I said, Bunny also might have just been like, you got away with something you shouldn't have last game. I'm going to try and punish that. But TY is not doing the same thing. He is playing a particularly safe version of the factory expand, too, because he is SCV scouting, perhaps not to the other side of the map, but around his bases, trying to find the actual proxies, which he does find. Bad news for Bunny. I believe there is a famous singer named Bad Bunny. This is bad news, Bunny. That dog is howling way more than I've ever heard it howl before. Did I turn sound effects on and like didn't even notice? Or ambient effects, I think it is. It's kind of freaking me out. Anywho, Bunny is in a bad place. Now, it doesn't mean that he's dead. He can still play this out, but now he's unintentionally, right, put himself into almost a similar position as last game, which is that he's behind. Like, you know, it's not the exact same, but if he finds no SCV damage with this, it's kind of similar. TY gets away with a greedier build. It's a factory expand, but still. And Bunny is working from a 2 to 3 worker deficit, which last game turned into like an 8 worker deficit. TY gonna go for the proxy starport. I love when they do this. Even seen Kier go for a proxy factory. No, was it? I think it was a proxy factory against this once. Things are getting a little dicey on the side of the map, but the Hellion pops out, and now it is no longer dicey. TY has not taken too many SCVs worth of damage, just the 1. Finally gets a Reaper. He's just buying time. Right now, Bunny might be thinking, okay, at least I'm really holding up this guy's build. See no starport, I see no command center. You're being held up a little bit. Perhaps you just now get 400 minerals and you're about to slap it down. That would be completely realistic. Bunny leaves right now, possibly thinking that a command center is about to be slapped down. It's not. Starport. Starport with Liberator about to arrive on his SCV line. He does not have a factory. It's only now finishing. The factory is usually well-timed enough. Oh, he's going to scout. Okay, that's good. But he can't do very much about it. It's usually well-timed against someone who builds a starport back at their base. then it's not really an issue. But the proxy is the kicker. The Cyclone will pop out. The Liberator will cause at least some lost SCV mining time. TY, I was going to say there's not much of a follow-up, but he kind of does. 3 Hellions, looking to maybe enter into the main base, decide not to. They're going to actually hold off on that for a hot second. Liberator gets 2 SCVs. Again, lost mining time, realizes the Cyclone is going to pop out any moment, takes a safer location. I'm actually kind of surprised the Hellions did pull back. There's nothing to pull back for. I guess just figuring all of the army will be defending at home anyways, so... It's just true. The Cyclone actually got shot once. A little sus. Gonna force a repair on that. Because if it doesn't get repaired, then now it's 1 shot from the Liberator. There we go. That was cool. I saw the... something died here, and it was an SCV. And it was literally blocking the tech lab. Which is a very fast-producing add-on. But those extra few seconds made the Liberator have an extra few seconds of mining denial. So it was pretty cool. The TY still has 3 Hellions that could try and run in at a later time. To the natural, you know, specifically. TY's economic lead actually not that much larger. He did, at the end of the day, go for a 1-1-1 setup, right? So his command center was delayed. He's ahead by 1 SCV. That's pretty much where it's going to stop. They both are getting the orbital at the same time. And now the scouting barracks is officially dead. It was able to scout that there was a second barracks. Actually a pretty good scout. If Bunny were to assume off of 0 scouting that TY was going into mech, he'd be wrong. So seeing that second barracks is actually quite nice. Ooh, one of mine pops off. Angel the Cyclone. Tank siege up as well. And the Cyclone does get 2 shot. Just barely not getting 1 shot there. Did he get kills on Tech Lab? Wait, what? Who? Oh my god, he did! Oh my god, he A-clicked on the barracks and A-clicked on his tech lab. LOL. That is funny. That is a professional move right there. Professional. And you know what's even funnier is that Bunny saw that. That's funny. Well, the stim was, what, like 20 seconds in or something like that, but it's really not the worst. It's not good, but it's not the worst. TY would have had his stim finishing with possibly medevacs, actually. If he gets 2 Vikings default first and then 2 medevacs, I think it would have finished with 2 medevacs. Now it'll be a little mistimed, but yeah, whatever. This game does end up being pretty even. Bunny evening up the workers, even on the stim, because TY killed his own tech lab. There would have been, what, like a 30 to 40 second difference of stim timing, I guess. I'm just really guessing here. Which means there's a 40 second difference on the combat shields, which might have been important, but we'll never know. We'll never know what would have happened. Point is, things are looking awfully even. The only thing that is really different, right, is, well, not the only thing, but a big difference, is that Bunny's 3rd CC is faster. Much faster. TY emphasizing his production first. Delays his 3rd CC. And that TY will have more units in general. He's got the Marines pumping out. He's also almost at double the army supply of his opponent. So, and he's gonna have medevacs, so he can be a lot more mobile. Bunny is now the one playing on the defense more so, which is not an uncommon position for Bunny. The amount of TVTs these guys play, you're gonna have to play the defender at some point. But generally, you wouldn't say that's really where Bunny thrives. He thrives in chaos and aggression. Now, this is the first time we're seeing TY actually play bio in this matchup. He played 3 mech games and 1 bio game. I imagine his bio play, his pacing, will probably be very similar to his mech play. He is going to go for a drop, but he's going to be paying attention to it once he sees a Cyclone and the Viking. He may not actually go for it. Well, the two Vikings of TY leading the charge take out the Viking of his opponent. Now it's only the Cyclone to combat against. TY really looking to make this work. It's going to have an opportunity. The Cyclone's going to use the lock-on. Use, lose, whatever. But it looks like TY is not going to go for it. And that's, to me, like a very TY thing. I feel like Bunny would have gone. That's like a perfect example. Would it have been a good thing if the drops entered into the main base? Maybe not. But Bunny probably still would have gone for it. But no, TY does not. And it looks like his upgrades were a little mismatched. He only had the one engineering bay for a while, I suppose. So upgrades overall favoring Bunny. Assuming that these particular Marines will not win any fights. They will not. Combat shields still pretty close together as well. Medivacs will always be a threat, as long as Bunny does not have any Vikings. But he is also starting to pump out some Marines. His actual unit count is starting to look a lot better as Bunny's army supply is a lot closer to TY's. He's just going to make sure it doesn't get found out of position, which he is very aware of. Knows that TY is probably setting up a second attack. Now, his third base is protected, but his natural is not. Only one tank there. Nice little spread from the Marines. Takes out the tank, opens up the opportunity to hit the natural, or does it? Couple interference pitches from Bunny. Nicely done. Two tanks will siege up for TY, kind of safeguard one of the tanks. And now, both of them coming in with the medevac drops. The reinforcements from TY, are they going to be enough as the upgrade also kicks in to even things out? It will be enough. Bunny not able to actually dislodge TY from this position. I was really hoping he would. He was like pretty sure that he could. But TY going for the instant reinforcements of his own, that was actually really clutch. Clean. Feels like he like whipped out a comb and like combed his hair back, you know? Like really, really cool shit. Wait, no, that was Bunny's upgrade. Oh, my bad. Bunny's upgrade was a little bit later than his +1, but only by seconds. Alright, so that didn't even things up. TY actually is at a disadvantage in the Marine count. Marine upgrades. And so taking this fight's actually a little questionable, but now it's evened up. Okay, I fixed myself. It's fixed up. It's fixed. The two tanks will get picked up to successfully evacuate, and things are still relatively even. TY does have a 14-worker lead and a fourth base coming down on location as he was taking that map control, so he is making leads for himself, no doubt about that. But Bunny has a workable army, that's for sure. In fact, even leading the army supply a little bit. Again, faster upgrades with 2-2 starting. And maybe has a decent counterattack in him. Not really a counterattack at this point, but he could try and take the map control back at this point in time. If he does not, well, then TY is going to have that very thriving economic lead. It just kind of sucks that you forgot his 2-2. There we go. There we go. Getting all his upgrades. Getting all of his upgrades. Getting all of it! Okay, well, he's missing his armor. Whoops-a-daisy. TY liking the missile turret with the supply depot. I like it, just in case they aren't paying attention to their medevacs. I also do like that Bunny's being aggressive. I think he absolutely needs to be. He doesn't necessarily know it, but he needs to be. He knew that the fourth base was building on location. It is an easy drop of 8 Marines to stop that. But he did not know. TY gets away with it. TY also looking to defend his third base. Tank siege up. Marines in place. Seems okay to me. Gas geyser is the only thing that's really vulnerable. And nice repositioning of the tank as well on that high ground. Very nicely done indeed. Bunny might be thinking he's making headway, and perhaps he is. But do not forget that TY's fourth base, alive and well, turning into a planetary, substantial lead, as Bunny still has... Well, there we go. Actually gunning his own on-location fourth command center, which he really needs to do. And provided that there's no major battle, this will probably kind of even out once again. If a major battle happens for Bunny, he's going to want to hope that it's within the next 30 seconds. Well, no, actually more like a minute. So he wants his 2-2 to be done, and his opponent's not to be. Oh, another misfire. But, oh, that's not what Bunny wanted, which is 2 medevacs finding a planetary. That was already pretty bad. Okay. And then also dying. He's going to try and send 4 medevacs worth of you. Why use that medevac, Bunny? Please, for the love of God. 4 medevacs. Going to try and enter into the main base. 1 missile turret, 2 Vikings, a tank to try and help out. He's going to try and skirt on past, but that means this very vulnerable medevac is actually in range. Ah, okay. It's gonna unload. It is gonna unload. He did try and snipe it. You saw TY focus fire it down, but is this the worst thing ever? Only if TY makes it the worst thing ever. If he over-responds, he'll have an opportunity, his opponent will have an opportunity to hit his 4th base, so that's exactly what TY is afraid of. Make sure to actually split up his army, but it's not sieged up. No, it does siege up, perfectly timed. TY should be able to hold the siege tanks. He is down in upgrades, but the Marines took a decent fight to start. And so they were able to concave a little bit on the tanks. The main base was also cleared up. TY with a very good response, actually. It was very, very clutch. Like, the seconds were very important there, right? TY initially pulled back his entire army, realized that would be the worst thing to do, made sure to split his army because he's a professional, he knows what he's doing. Still almost didn't have it ready to go. If his tanks siege up later and he's down in upgrades, that's bad for him. Like, that could have been way, way worse. At the very least, that means that Bunny still has the aggression going. Now, Bunny has completely been forced to back off. And with that economy being ever so stable for TY, Bunny's supply is really starting to look like it's quite bad. It's in the gutter, you know? His 4th base turns to an orbital. I think this is a risk that he's thinking he has to take. He's going to go for the additional barracks as opposed to starports, as he hopes to just gain momentum. Overwhelm TY when TY is least expecting it. But TY is actually the one now grabbing that upgrade lead, which is bad news, especially bad news for someone who's about to rely on the power of Marines. TY is also trying to find Bunny out of position. Bunny desperately tracking his opponent's army is never a comfortable place to be, especially if the opponent has the Liberators. So now you got 2 siege units to worry about. Finally remembers zone 3-3, but TY not only started up his 3-3 faster, it looks like he also got up to 7 barracks, which is actually kind of weird. It's 8 barracks usually. But he got up to more barracks faster too, so he's already cranking out the Marines. Bunny is simply going to match his opponent stylistically, but with worse stuff. Worse upgrades, worse economy. Oh, and a big old drop into the main base. No tanks included, but perhaps TY doesn't need any tanks. Bunny responds, but no medevacs to heal up his units. Only 1 tank, not that intimidating. Starport and barracks go down. Bunny gonna have to rebuild infrastructure, something that is quite expensive for him. Supply depot is also going down. And Bunny has to spend all this time clearing up Marines that are very easy to replace for TY. He's rich, he's got the production, he can replace these no problem. It'd be a bit different if he killed all the medevacs and he killed 7 tanks in the process. But killing, 50 Marines even is actually not that bad. TY, with all of the pressure applied, would also ensure that he has time to rebuild those Marines. He's got money, he's got production, he's got time. And now he's going to try and find Bunny out of position. Liberators siege up a little bit too courageously. They do get gunned down. Good on Bunny to jump on that opportunity. And also Bunny trying to sneak in another base to the bottom left. For Bunny fans, you better hope this doesn't get found out, but TY's awfully close to it. Also, TY dropped back in. 3-3 not quite kicked in yet, but it will be very, very soon. Runs into a tank fire. It's not the best to pick up, but maybe unload on top of the tank? Or on top of the 3rd CC? Anywhere? Anywhere is golden. Both are good. Both. Alright, now a little bit late to it. Bunny is trying to shore up his defenses. He's got a lot of holes in his defenses, and he's trying to plug them all up right now. But TY, he's actually willing to throw away a large amount of Marines to try and actually abuse those weaknesses. Case in point, probably not the best fight actually for TY. There was too many tanks to handle, but he was trying. He's really trying to force open this game. Trying to make sure that he can actually snowball it, because Bunny was starting to claw his way back in. Bunny was on 5 bases. Somehow this one actually was totally fine. He was on 5 bases. Zone 3-3 was going to finish up. His tank count was very good. He's still at 9, actually. Like, Bunny was absolutely clawing his way back into this game. TY actually being a little overly aggressive, losing that chunk of Marines, trying to break Bunny ASAP. This kind of ruined his supply a little bit. Bunny is trying to basically run with the momentum. A lot of medevacs dropping into the main base, Marines and tanks, everything almost that Bunny has got, trying to capitalize on Terran's weakest point, the production. Take out the production, take out the Terran. For TY, patience is once again a great virtue. you are going to have to admit to you losing your production. That's just straight up going to happen. And perhaps losing your SCVs as well. Those Marines, not part of the party in the main base, make their own party at the third. With Blackjack and Hookers. 13 SCVs go down, perhaps the Orbital as well. No, not quite. And TY is being spread all over the place. Liberators in the main base actually doing a wonderful job trying to clean this all up. And Bunny is starting to run thin on the units in the main base, but they have certainly done a grand job of destroying production. If Bunny had income, if he had better income, he would actually be so amazing right now. The problem is his worker count's not in, like, that high, I guess. And I think he just didn't actually move his SCVs fast enough. I don't know, actually. He just does not have that much mining. TY has much more mining. Mules being dropped, perhaps, the big difference. Upgrades are completely even, but TY has the numbers. TY has the numbers. He has the bank. Some of the production ended up living, at least. And he also has this top right base, too. I don't think Bunny knows about that one. Bunny was hoping to do a big old counterattack to end the game abruptly, you know? Just, oh, one mistake, I'm gonna pounce on it. But TY holds strong, and Bunny's out even over-stimming. Medevacs aren't healing fast enough, so he is bound to lose the battles when it comes to Marine versus Marine. His tanks are the strongest thing that he has, and tanks are pretty good. But he never got that +2, so he's actually not one-shotting TY's Marines when they stim. That's coming back to bite him, actually. Kinda needs it. TY is going back in with drops to the main base, knowing that it's a vulnerability. Bunny is almost all in, right? He's rallying across the map in TVT, something you only do if you're desperate or you know you're winning. It's like, which one is it? Well, Bunny's pretty desperate. Does manage to grab some reinforcements to hold on to the main base, but he's not really making any headway on TY's side of the map. TY realizes this and is like, well, it's a stalemate. So I'm just going to move all my Marines up to the north, and Bunny is very aware of the possibility of this. You don't play TVT in these situations as many times as these guys do without knowing that that's going to happen. The tank lines will stay, and the Marines will move. But unfortunately, Bunny did not have the resources, reinforcements to be every place at once. Main base got covered, then the third base, but only after the third base died. And Bunny's tanks actually are being torn apart. They tried to go after the planetary. That meant the Liberator had ideal position to take on the tanks, and the planetary, well, could be saved. Should be saved. There we go. Again, Bunny not realizing that his opponent has these bases. No, he knows. He actually knows how pretty screwed he is. He knows that this is his last chance. Yeah, probably his last chance. He's maybe got like half a chance after this, you know, if this doesn't work, to actually win this game. He is bleeding out too much. He is letting TY take too much of the map. Or he already has, I guess is a better way to put it. Oh no, all the tanks on siege. All the tanks on siege! And TY wanted to gain that high ground. Fortunately, Bunny did have backup tanks. That was almost a very, very, very big mistake. 30 supply difference between the two. We know that tanks can cover that. TY could take a bad battle. He could get overconfident or impatient and run right into those tanks. Something that, you know, he could have easily done there, thinking that he had a golden opportunity. So Bunny is still absolutely in it. He's got the chance. Once again, hitting the production is usually the play, and well, there you go. Not a whole lot of medevacs, however, so is that what he's gonna do? Oh, he's also dealing with a drop on his side of the map. Drop, 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 drop. CVT, guys. TY and Bunny both supply blocked and continuing to hurt each other's infrastructure. Bunny decides to run on back home, figuring that it took too long for him to hit TY's main base, and he's right. TY was already responding and no longer has to fear defending his third, right? So, excellent response from TY, who continues to attack the production of Bunny. Bunny still on a decent army supply. If he collects everything together, might have a chance to move across the map, but he's got to be real careful. He actually cannot afford to lose medevacs. Can't replace them. Well, I guess he could. The problem right now is supply blocked, so I guess he could, but I'm trying to say every penny counts for him, and medevacs are still very much integral to this composition. Yep. Yeah. I'm finally gonna unload. It's a bit scary to unload. But unloads. And now has a big old concave, but the AI works against Bunny a little bit. His tanks siege up on the bottom side, but the Marines on the top side a little late to the party. Could have been a more beautiful sandwich. Instead, it was okay. The point is it delicious? You don't care if a sandwich looks a bit on the weird side if it's fucking delicious, alright? And for Bunny, actually not that delicious. Bunny was almost set up for this perfect concave. Almost. But TY actually ends up getting out ahead, and since he survived a potential surround, he now has all this room to play with, entering into Bunny's would-be fifth base. Natural as well. We're back to where we started, back at minute 8. Bunny once again trying to just go for the big old Doom Drop. When in doubt, Doom Drop, right? Tanks are sieged up for TY, but they're easily dropped upon. Bunny, however, runs out of boost. Does not scan ahead to realize what he's dropping into, actually taking a lot of tank shots on his tanks. You know, this is something he could have completely avoided. He could have had all of his tanks alive and well had he known that the tanks could have been dropped upon. Instead, Bunny loses out in very crucial supply and now no longer has any Marines. The Liberator coming in clutch once again as TY takes down his opponent's tanks, is also taking down his opponent's economy. This planetary really the only thing, and it is a planetary, so I guess, you know, tanks gonna have to siege for that one, but SCV Bull trying to complete the sandwich here, but TY figured that was on the way. He did initially focus fire his tanks, but then he saw them get confused. Bunny, with a very desperate last attempt at holding, realizes that the game is in fact over. You could argue that he had a little more to play with. You could. The supplies are still kind of even, but he was on his last life for like 8 minutes, you know, like, and he made it awfully close. He really did. But eventually, you had to tire out, right? So, TY, for his first appearance back into the GSL, at least makes it to the elimination match. And poor Bunny, who was usually a consistent contender for GSL, actually is going to lose out in the first group stage. So a bit sad for Bunny, but excited to see what TY can now do versus Classic. In the top left of this elimination match, we have TY. And at the bottom right, it is Classic. Classic won against Bunny. Lost against Maru, that happens. TY lost against Maru, won against Bunny. The only thing they share in common is that it's, you know, difficult to defeat Maru. And easier to defeat Bunny, I guess. Now that they're matching up head-to-head, I'm actually not really sure. I once again am hesitant to believe in Classic due to the problems of the matchup right now. Someone earlier asked, you know, is it imbalanced? And I'm not the person to answer that, really. As a attempted neutral observer, I will just say that Protoss are having difficulties, right? They don't have the perfect answer. I think one of the complaints especially is that it doesn't feel like you really have you don't have something that covers all your bases. You know, you can cover 75%, but then you don't cover the 25%, and that's what the Terran does, you know? So that's what makes me hesitant to believe in Classic, but if it wasn't for that, Classic's PvT actually does look pretty good. He's one of the more hopeful Protosses in the matchup. And he did get the opportunity to only prepare against Terran for his group. Whereas TY might have even gambled a little bit, saying, well, I think Classic will lose. And then maybe I can face Bunny and Maru to get out. Which, you know, would definitely not have been surprising. And then TY would rely on his kind of famous, stable TVT. Something that he's good at in both Brood War and StarCraft 2. And just, you know, one of the more consistent matchups across the timeline of StarCraft. Now he has to face TVP, which does really change up. You know, every 6 months or a year at least, you know, it does change up. Which you compare to TVT, it just, yeah, that's... TVT can be at least boiled down to the basics consistently. If not the actual meta remaining pretty similar. PVT is very different. TY, back in the day, of which he was a full-time pro for many, many, many years, before he went to military, he was a very tricky TVPer. I mean, he certainly likes to think up smart builds. Kind of like a Gumiho, but more calm and collected. Gumiho does things that it feels like can often boil down to a bit of not erraticness, but just you can kind of see that Gumiho is hoping that something would go a bit wrong for his opponent, I think. Whereas when you see TY do weird stuff, I guess you just kind of assume that he had everything lined up in his head in advance, which maybe isn't really fair to Gumiho. Gumiho just has less credentials, I guess, than TY as far as their careers go. But yeah, they both have that brain power where they look at a matchup and they think a bit differently about it, and then they can kind of see it play out in their head a little bit, and they can actually think, okay, if I do this and this and this and this, then he'll do that, that, and that, and that, and then I'll end up winning. TY just seems to be usually a little bit more calm, I suppose, about it, and it's a little less weird. Gumiho can go really off the rails. TY, not as much, I think. But again, Classic loving his 2 Adept opener. Looking to ensure the SEVs cannot mine all willy-nilly in the natural. Gets one right there. Would it be possible for PvT to feel worse to play than it actually is? Well, you shouldn't look at years when you're talking about balance, first of all. Do not look at years. Look at the last 6 months, if that. Maybe even last 3 months, actually. And then second of all, you gotta make sure that you're taking out, like, basically obvious matchups. You're taking away the time that Showtime faced off against Baby Marine. Showtime's just favored against Baby Marine. I would say, as again an attempted neutral observer, as we watch a typical TVP actually, Blink 3 gate, going into the double gas on the natural, that Protoss have a more difficult time in the last 3 months. I think the patch changes for the Terran just kind of also read as favorable to them. I think I said that back when the patch was released. And I think the leaders of the Protoss, in terms of actually not just losing out every single PvT, are often those who are aggressive and take control of the scenario. So Max Pax and Classic. Hero is trying, but kind of failing recently. And again, I think what the pros are saying is that you can play decent, even TVPs 75% of the time, but then there's that quarter of a time where it's just the most brutal mismatch in terms of build orders or circumstances. And the recovery is far less likely for the Protoss. And I think that's very fair. So, you know, a lot of Protosses, you ask them directly, and they're all fair. Like, Protoss actually, it feels like they've been kind of, like, beaten too long, you know? Like, they're just kind of used to the abuse. Like, you ask them directly, do you think there's a problem? And they're just so hesitant. They could literally be losing every single TVP. And they'd be like, well, you know, I just sometimes... they're like, they're actually pretty cautious. But anyways, we'll leave the theoretics for later. The actual facts here, that Classic did go into a solid macro Colossus setup. Something he wasn't really capable of...
Resubscription received.
Hello? Capable of doing in his matches earlier, because Marines killed him, but hey, there won't be very many Marines on this game, will there? TY going into mech. Well, I said that Gumiho was usually the crazier one. I take it back. Mech versus Protoss is pretty freaking crazy. Are there instances of people, good Terrans, going mech against Protoss? Yes. They are usually not very good. Euthermal does it, but one of the reasons that mech can work in some situations has to do with the beginning of the game. So if you've heard of people winning with mech against Protoss, it's usually because there was an opening that already gave them an advantage. So there was like a Cyclone opener that surprised the Protoss, or a Wood of Mine drop that surprised the Protoss, or something along those lines. Very typical slow building mech versus Protoss is pretty terrible a lot of the time. Here's the rub for this particular game, though. Classic doesn't know. And the longer you don't know it's mech, obviously the better it is for the mech player. That's just true for anyone. But when you know it's mech right off the bat, you can basically choose how you want to handle it, right? So typically a 3-base setup is kind of the minimum. And then you could go super economic happy. Get all the bases, all the probes, and then almost like a Zerg player, get your economy and then just unleash charge lots and stalkers and archons. Or you can choose to do like a 3-base kind of timing almost, where you do just invest right into the charge lots and try to overwhelm them when they're still at a low supply count. If you don't know it's mech, as a Protoss player, you're whoopsie-daisy, you're actually awaiting the attack. The Protoss player is the one in a typical TVP wondering when the Terran player is going to show up with bio. So, you know, only just then did Classic realize what he's up against. Oh no, he had something scouted in the main base prior to that, but like it must have been seconds difference, right? Because this Colossus just walked right into those tanks. But he is now preparing a little bit of a transition. He's going to try and dive towards the Stargates. Now, this is a fine transition. He still scouted it fast enough to at least know that it won't be perfect for a while. If he scouted this at like 15 minutes, I mean, this is a perfect mech army. It's maxed out with upgrades and probably ghosts, you know, and you're like, oh shit. But now, you know there's some supply that needs to be filled out as a mech player. They probably want to secure their 4th base before they move out as well. And that means you will probably have the time to get to Stargates. TY's already on top of that, though. It's already building starports. Did he scan the Stargates? He did. He scouted one Stargate and knew exactly what that meant. Classic doesn't necessarily have to just, like, invest only into transferring over into Stargates. But the opportunity to max out and collapse on the mech army has been missed a little bit. I still think he'd do okay. Well, Zealot's actually killing a bunch of SCVs. That's nice. I actually think Classic would do all right if he did just want to max out and take repeated engagements against the mech army. I still think he'd be okay with that. But it's definitely not the perfect setup because he was a little late to scouting. I still think it's an okay setup, though. The charge lots killed SCVs and then had a big distraction. Nice force field disruptor combination. Force field to be the last thing on my mind in this game. 10 minutes in. Barrack scouts the awkward Zealot proxy. Warp Prism. Just gonna try and go for another warp in. Not gonna work out. That should be dead. Yep, that should be dead. Well, Classic is going up to 5 bases. 9 gateways, which, since he's not going super gateway heavy, is okay. And then, most importantly, 3 starports. Stargates, sorry. TY also has 3 starports, but have they been building long enough? They are only just now adding on the reactors. One of them has a tech lab. So the carriers will arrive. 3 carriers versus, like, 9 Vikings. That's actually an okay Viking number. Okay, that's a start. That's a start. Eventually, though, Skytoss, I would say, beats Mech Terran. Unless the Terran player gets to a bunch of Thors. Or a really, really winning Viking count. I mean, that could happen. Classic also trying to make some things happen on the ground, right? Charge lot, run by, second with the main army. Not really working out. Zealot's not doing a whole lot. Main army is hardly an army. I mean, it's just the robo units and a sentry. Way to go, sentry. The TY knows that the real problem is going to be the carriers, so he's not getting trapped into just focusing solely on the ground army. And these attacks have also just confirmed that, by the way. These attacks from Classic have clearly not been the mass gateway Protoss attacks. There'd be way more army attacking him if that was the case. 12-minute bio attack. Bio drop from the mech player. How about that? Scans again, sees that carriers have popped out. And it is important also to see that they are carriers initially. Might change how you take the battles. But now I also see the Tempests are on the way, and we know Tempests with their range are pretty annoying. If he has enough Vikings, he might win the fight. Oh, I love the hallucinated Archons. I like it. I like it. But does he? 16 Vikings? Again, pretty nice number. I actually would kind of like if Classic added on at least a couple High Templars for the successful retreats. Whenever he takes on more than he could chew, if he has to retreat, he, storms. Storms would be really helpful. And in the same vein of thought, by the way, TY adding on Ghosts would not be a terrible decision. But he's much better than I am, so he do he. 16 Vikings tackling the air army of the Protoss, and it is only the air army. No Stalkers, no Archons, no Storms. That was just numbers right there, nothing to really confuddle the issue. It does feel like Classic might have thought too highly of his Stargate transition. It's kind of like, well, I did the thing. So, like, can I win now? I was like, not that easy. Mech is overall worse, but we are increasing... We're encroaching on that almost perfect mech army. I would say perfect would include Ghost, though. Which I know isn't mech, but whatever. Oh, and perfect also would include battlecruisers. That's what it is. Perfect Terran, Sky Terran is battlecruisers. Which I think TY might get to. Maybe. It's difficult to do. It's a very, very, very expensive and slow transition. I actually don't know if he's going to bother doing that this game. Stalker's making an appearance. Probably better if they're charge lots. Classic might realize... So the Stalkers are obviously there to try and pick off some of the Vikings and help out the Sky. But a couple of charge lots do really well against the static defense and the tanks. TY still has some Hellions, I believe. Nope, I'm a non-believer now. He's 0 Hellions. He has Widow Mines, though, which I like. I'm still not convinced by this mech. I'm still not convinced. I know it's doing okay, but I'm not convinced. Stalker is able to come in and help out a little bit against Storms. Like, I actually am kind of... Oh, yeah, he's at a Templar Archives. Yes. Validation. I really think that Storms are great here because not only do they help a successful retreats, which could be a real issue, but literally they have the range. So you add the High Templar cast range with the actual range of the spell, and it's very likely that they'll at least clip the Vikings. Disruptors are really nice to have if the Terran was going into a Thor response. I don't know if the Disruptors are as useful, considering that we're still only on tanks and Vikings. I know we are getting a battlecruiser. Okay, he is going to try and go for it. Good luck. Good luck. It's tough. It's tough. It's very tough. Yeah, Disruptors, don't kill your own Zealots! Zealots also had to be wary of the Widow Mines, and honestly, Atlanta Vikings as well. Yeah, more charge lots. Because you can just start sprinkling them in. It is really like a Zerg. Because you'd even start sending in 2 Zealots first, and then the rest of the Zealots, just like they'd send in 2 Lings. And then you just clear out the tanks. It's not necessarily a cost-efficient trade, though, as maybe you could tell. And the more Zealots die than tanks. It's just that tanks take up the gas, and ideally, you haven't let the mech player expand everywhere. Ideally. The Disruptors, as far as clearing out Widow Mines and static defense, is okay. That's viable. Yeah. I think the Colossus are also starting to look like really wasted supply. Maybe not even starting. Maybe they started to look like wasted supply 5 minutes ago. Classic needs to, I think at this point, really just go all in on the air. Especially once he sees battlecruisers. And so far, he hasn't. And it is a real question mark. It is the ultimate endgame composition for a Terran player and a mech player. But it is such a difficult transition to make that I don't think it's guaranteed that that's the end goal of a Terran player. You still have to pay attention and scout. But yeah, once you realize what's going on, I think you just really have to go like mass air. Which he's starting to. Well, his Colossus are still here. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Classic has taken up most of the map, but if things are gonna continue going this way, Battlecruiser is revealed, by the way, he's gonna have to actually take TY's bases as well. We are getting to now a much more similar end game where they both are making super expensive units, and they're both, like, all minerals and gas are fair game. No one has, like, a cheaper Remax, really. Maybe technically, I don't want to do the math. But it's super expensive, right? You both need bases. No one could be like, if I'm 1 or 2 less bases than my opponent, I'm still okay. That's not this game anymore. Which I think it would have been for TY, because he was a mech player, and mech player is almost like more Protoss than Protoss. But now they're both just late game mech players. It's late game Protoss versus late game mech. Viking hit squad. Oh yeah. Carriers still haven't responded. Taking a while. 27 Vikings. Kill a Nexus. And managed to escape. How about that? New concern for Classic, by the way, are run-by battlecruisers. Actually tried to do his own run-by with DTs and Immortals. But the battlecruisers can slowly move their way across the map, let's say over to this space, and then they can teleport out after doing damage. So that is something that TY can do, and Classic has to be wary of. What TY cannot do, though, is 1, teleport into your opponent's base. That's terrible. That's a terrible idea. Don't do that. But then 2, he can't teleport out of his opponent's side of the map and then take an engagement. And that's really something that Classic is going to even look for. He wants the battlecruisers to teleport outside of engagements, basically. Because then they don't have the micro for the actual engagement. Recall was used, but not to this Nexus. Not to the mothership either. I don't even know where the hell it was. The Nexus is going to die, by the looks of it. The mothership also in a bit of trouble. Now he teleports to the mothership, but the teleport's easy peasy lemon squeezy. And TY, once again using his Vikings over on the left side to cancel a Nexus. Looks like the DTs did clear out this top right base, but the Classic needs to do more than just kill it. I think he really needs to take it. It's very difficult for him to do, of course. Planetary Sim City helping out a little bit. Disruptors managing to miss, not really help out too much, and 3 of them still alive. Again, maybe questioning their supply usage. At least you get rid of those Colossus. The 3 Disruptors, again, the best thing they're doing right now is killing Widow Mines and missile turrets, which is still important. They're still important, but I just feel like the Disruptors are very close to just getting shot in the face and deaded. 3 more battlecruisers. TY up to almost 8. He also has full upgrades for his mech army. Not quite full on upgrades for the Protoss army. Missing the shields, missing the armor for the air, which is pretty important. I mean, you'd rather have it than not. I don't think it causes any kill shot issues, but you'd rather have the upgrades than not. There he goes. Starts to play some of those upgrades. And he finally gets Storm. I saw the Templar Archives, and I thought I was validated. And he warped in High Templars, and then realized he didn't get Storm. Nice. Love it. Storm, not that helpful against battlecruisers. I guess anything is helpful if it's a direct fight. Not usually what makes or breaks a battlecruiser fight, though. I was about to say, before getting distracted, 8 battlecruisers, still not the ideal count. I think eventually TY might sacrifice his tanks. I don't know if he can sacrifice more SCVs. Let's build more battlecruisers. I also don't know if he wants to sacrifice any of his Vikings. As cool as it is to have an only battlecruiser maxed out army, Vikings are really helpful. They're very microable. I also love the Ravens. I haven't mentioned them, but I do love them. Anti-air missile going to be very effective. Interference matrix as well. Probably not going to go for too many interference matrix, but taking out 4 carriers from the equation? Yeah, okay. I do still wish that TY had gone for ghosts. If I may be so bold, I feel like TY could add on ghosts. He just got the mothership, by the way, trying to be sneaky sneak. Classic was going to attack to the right and then recall to the left. And TY caught it. Now we have a major battle going down. Storms are helping. They are doing damage, but we had the Amados into the teleport. TY is going to repair up those battlecruisers. 4 more are on the way as well. And the same cannot be said for the carriers. They will regen their shields, but not their hull health. They get recalled back somewhere. Some stalkers, leftover stalkers, trying to do something. I don't know. Why not? More workers went down. TY is replacing them. But, yeah, that makes sense for now. If this game goes to 40 minutes, he might not bother replacing SCVs. Actually, I'll say 30 minutes. If this game gets to 30 minutes, I think TY will probably be down to like 20 SCVs and just accept it. I don't know. Don't get too many of these games. You don't see it between professionals too often, and even amongst your own ladder experiences, usually something has gone catastrophically wrong by this point. Someone has made a very dumb mistake because they get impatient. Definitely not speaking from experience. But this, if TY really is one of the better players for late game, and I believe he is, I think his battlecruisers will win the war. I'm a big believer in the mass battlecruiser being the complete endgame when controlled correctly. And that is usually the issue. I thought Gumiho would be particularly good at this late game competition, and he kind of failed on it. It looks like TY is not going to do that same fail. He is actually teleporting ahead, realizing he has the opportunity. The Vikings coming in to help out as well. The carriers actually withdrew most of their interceptors on their retreats. So they have not even been countering. They have not even really been engaged in the battle. And the Vikings managed to survive a couple of storms as well. Last few carriers going to get gunned down. TY could bring SCVs to repair or call down mules. Classic did have enough of the bank to remake 10 carriers. That's pretty impressive. But 10 carriers going to pop out 30 seconds. Have to rebuild their interceptors. That's a lot of time for TY to recover, again, the SCV repair, and then also maybe continue doing damage to his economy. Zealot's got warped in because, you know, Classic has a bunch of minerals, so why not? And Classic is going to, by the looks of it, get a successful remax. He has enough bank, he has enough economy. Wait. I was gonna say, there's no way he had enough to build 9 carriers and 8 Tempests. No, he canceled the carriers. That makes more sense. Yeah, okay, so okay. So the carriers aren't necessarily the best thing against the battlecruisers, right? Interceptors do fast, low damage, and battlecruisers are high armored units. They also have that micro problem that I was just talking about, where the interceptors actually get withdrawn. So they're only very effective if all the interceptors are already out. And Tempests, you know, they're slow shooters, but they do literally, they're designed to shoot down massive units. They do that damage versus massive. So how many Tempests to one-shot a battlecruiser? 4 or 5, I guess. I definitely not keen on learning the dynamics of this late game. But anyways, would be fantastic. Would be glorious. You know, Tempest literally designed to take on battlecruisers. Wonderful. Not actually. The battlecruisers still have so much more micro-ability. The Amato plus the teleport means that they can jump on you, and the Tempests are not fast shooters. So they shoot once, they kill 2 or 3 battlecruisers. Yay! They take forever to reshoot. The second shot takes forever. Or it can be used to disengage. Classic now trying to just run around, kill all the production, and perhaps find some reinforcing units, has invested a decent amount into his ground army, while trying to buy time, of course, for building up his ultimate late game army once again. But yeah, now that it's clear that he didn't have enough bank to rebuild 9 of each unit, Classic needs more time. He needs more time and needs more money to actually rebuild the late game army. But 16 battlecruisers and 20 Vikings and a single Raven is almost perfect. I think it's actually a perfect composition. Teleports a few battlecruisers to trap. The Stalker's recall is available, so most of the Protoss army will evacuate. Lovely recall to the mothership, but guess what? Battlecruisers have teleport. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Classic used up his recalls, I guess you could say, and so could not evacuate. TY managed to take down another big, expensive unit in the mothership. Stalkers in charge are still running around, and a lot of the air is still being held back at home somewhere. The TY is not really bleeding off a ton of battlecruisers. Every battlecruiser that dies to like a Stalker hit squad is amazing for Classic, right? He starts to feel hope. But it shouldn't happen too often. There are still resources on the map, believe it or not. 27 minutes in, but a lot of bases have been killed and remade in this game. So there's actually a ton of resources still left. A lot more game to play out. TY has almost reached his perfect composition, but having a bank is better than not. Classic is the one that I would say is going to have to be a little more the Zerg. Is going to have that bigger bank and the more economy to, you know, not remax again, but if he can trade 80 supply for 80 supply, but then he gets 40 supply back faster, then he might be able to overwhelm TY, because again, once TY uses teleport, his battle cruisers are significantly weaker. Now, if they use them offensively, it's because he knows he's going to win the fight. So I'm talking about when he has to evacuate, when they're on cooldown and he doesn't want them to be, right? Then they have that missing micro potential. That is where the Vikings help to kind of cover them, though. As the battle cruisers are a little more vulnerable, the Vikings come in and take down everything that would bully them. Charge Let's running by just to do something. It's hardly important, though. Annoying, yes. We are down to 13 battle cruisers. 7 have died in this game, hey. It's, you know, 14 carriers and 8 Tempest as well. I don't know if getting a Banshee speed is actually a worthwhile use of TY's gas and minerals, but okay. Vikings landing pretty smart, pretty good against Stalkers, and they do have the smart servos, so they landed very quickly. Wouldn't mind's littered around the map, as Classic does not have a traveling observer. It's great scouting, and they popped off, so it's also great damage. Hyperlight rotors were denied, but I think that's better for TY. I feel like you want that money. Am I crazy? Is one Banshee gonna change the tide of this game? Like, what? No, right? Maybe he's thinking I'll get just like 2 or 3 Banshees just to deal with this harassment crap. You could also just leave 1 battle cruiser at home, though. I don't think it'd be a good idea to go into like 10 Banshees. I do not think that would be very worth it. Absolutely not. Not in a late game situation. But we'll never know. We'll never know what TY really wanted to do because it stalled out. And now TY is out of position. 2 battle cruisers about to be found, and where they teleport to, I'm not sure, but they could teleport out to safety. Well, Classic doesn't find them. So Classic's gonna jump on top of the production. And the production is still a bit of a weak spot, even though TY has this gigantic army. The recall is going to be used, the teleport is used, and that is wonderful. Well, how many command centers are we down to? Only 3 orbitals and a planetary. Wow. Wow. That's not just a lot of economy, not a lot of economy. It's also not a lot of scans. Trying to figure out where your army is walking into. I said that TY would be fine at about a 20 worker count 30 minutes into the game. I was wrong. He's actually remaking SCVs. Again, though, I'm not really sure it's worth it. Well, I guess basically 2 SCV saturations, 2 mineral saturations worth of SCVs. There you go. I guess still makes sense considering there are so many minerals and gas still left on this map. I love the Widowmine's trying to respond. They got this! Vikings do come in, and they might actually have this, especially with their range, utilizing their range against the Void Ray and kind of the carrier a little bit. Battle cruisers teleport in, but some battle cruisers didn't even have teleport, but they were kind of collapsing in, so Classic did do the correct thing and recall out. These Widowmines, love of God. It's like every time he brings an observer, he forgets to bring one over here. These things have been around for so long. Zealots, once again, just trying to get some damage done. Classic is completely out of gas. He needs this Nexus, but TY is all over the place. He's taking engagements. He's using his Widow Mines. He's going for harassment. He's going the distance. Classic, I believe an eye almost, has lost all of his supply. All of the potential in this game. And this does not feel good. I can tell you that. As much as the game made sense, we witnessed it with our own eyes. We must believe that it happened. For Protoss players, losing against Mech, it's a real sore point. kind of not supposed to. It doesn't really make sense. And so I feel like this isn't just the damage of losing a game in a best of 3 on your elimination match. I feel like it's also mental warfare. TY, the 33 minutes. Super long game, which are frustrating to lose. Mech versus Protoss, which Protoss players really get even a little embarrassed losing to. And, you know, generally being on your now last life in the GSL. It's Classic's gonna have to show some real mental fortitude. He's gonna bring this series back. In the bottom left of Altitude, we have Classic. On top right, we have TY winning game number 1 with Mech. Just, doesn't feel good. It really doesn't. I know there's some people out there basically using that one game or maybe another handful of games from across the 13 years of StarCraft 2 to argue that, hey, no, Mech isn't that bad to lose to. Like, it's a thing. Like, obviously it happens, but it's not a thing. Protoss players are supposed to win against Mech. And that was not even a brutal start for Classic. What was brutal about it is that he didn't realize it was Mech until TY was already saturated on 3 bases with tanks sieged up behind SimCity. Then you've already missed that one major weak point of the Mech player. Then there's still a weak point in which you could, again, max out faster than them, or you could take over more of the map and go into the Stargates, which is the option that Classic chose. But then it did turn into a game where TY got a 4th base, and a 5th base, actually, too. And he also got Vikings, perfectly counter what you were doing. And it got complicated fast. I speak from experience on this one, at the very least. As a Protoss player facing off against Mech, you think, oh, pshaw. I don't have to worry. 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 Okay, well, maybe I have to worry a little bit. Oh, shit. I have to worry a lot. That is how it goes for Protoss players. I'm pretty sure this is true for pros as well. Can't confirm it, but I feel like that's how it goes for them too. And to be fair, that's not just Protoss versus Mech, that's anything versus Mech. Zerg and Terran versus Mech, I think, have the same train of thought, which is like, oh, I have plenty of time to stop them. I can get the 3rd base delayed. I can get the 4th base delayed. I can stop them from getting a 5th base. I can... Okay, I might be dead. Classic. Doing a classic move. After the 20-plus minute game. 30-plus minute game, actually. What do you do? Little proxy procs. Everyone loves the proxy. Classic did try this versus Maru, and it was Founds, but it looks like he will finally get to do his Game 2 build order versus TY to try and bring back this series and continue on in the GSL. For TY, if he actually wins the series, that would be pretty amazing. He struggled to get into the GSL Season 1 for Season 2. He not just gets in here, but also makes it out of a group, which, I mean, basically for the GSL right now, there's maybe 1 or 2 weak opponents, I suppose. But because there's just not that many slots, it's filled with, I would say, basically, almost anyone can defeat anyone players. Almost. So, I don't think TY was going to get necessarily an easier group, but he did have more TVTs, which I do think he would like more. If he had to start off his group playing a TVZ and then a TVP, it might have been a little different. Command Center was put off because, you know, the Adepts. The Adepts are lovely. Oracle is on the way. It's going to get chronoed and be paired up with 3 Adepts, too, which we know can be a little feisty. TUI making a big departure from the Mech play earlier. Actually goes into 2 barracks immediately. Or 1-1 and then another barracks. He doesn't know what his opponent's doing. He might know about the missing pylon. I think he does, actually. So he knows something is up. Yeah, he's very much waiting for it. Yeah, very much waiting for it. Classic not going to find any success hitting the main base. If he did pair this up with his 3 Adepts, he could have tried something in the natural, but his 2 Adepts are left at home. It's actually very surprising to me. Was he expecting something? He killed the Reaper. I don't know when he killed the Reaper. Maybe that's what the Adepts were doing. But yeah, 3 Adepts and an Oracle. You can see it would actually cause some problems in the natural. The Cyclone can only protect one base at a time. So that's usually what happens. You dip into the main base. Oh, okay, they didn't let me do any damage. And then you hit the natural. Surprised, especially Classic didn't do that. But anyways, Classic moving on to Twilight Council and Robo. Colossus will probably be on the way afterwards. TY, as I was pointing out, has a 2-1 set up now, adding on a starport, so it's going to have a decently fast marine-based attack. And the Revelation just confirmed that. I don't think he already knew about it, but now he really knows the exact timing of the Medivacs. I don't know what he was dipping back in for, but anywho. We're just waiting for TY's first 2 Medivacs and 16 Marines to go across the map, if they can. Classic knows exactly what TY is going to be capable of, so he could also try settling his Stalkers in position and just hoping the Medivacs run out across the Stalker force, which 6 right now. Could warp in 3 more. TY sending out some Marines for scouting, also pops a stasis trap. It's the only stasis trap, finds the Oracle, almost. Actually finds the army and is going to be forced to stim to escape that. That's not a terrible army. When the Marines don't have combat shields and Medivacs. With Medivacs, you're getting to that point in which bio is better. If combat shields were to finish, yeah, Classic is overstaying. Especially because Classic actually did not have Blink, something that TY was unaware of. Oracle! She refuses death. She will not die. Classic's 3rd base on the way. I did see the 2 gases and presumed it was Colossus. Oh, okay, it is. There we go. Colossus on the way. Marines having a tough time exiting the battlefield. When it comes to a one-on-one fight, the Stalkers can't... Whoa. They can micro. You know, they can force stims, blink outs, come back, force stims, blink out, force stim, pick off a couple of units, blink out. And if TY does try and load up his 2 Medivacs and fly, well, what if he flies over the Stalkers? So actually, Classic's very almost simple pressure is doing a lot. TY seems content on his position. He doesn't seem to be really eager to force the move out. It kind of takes some of the wind out of his build's sails. Like, he had the 2-1-1 that could have flown across the map immediately and done something like Bunny did earlier today. But, you know, it's not the worst thing if it doesn't, I suppose. He is still building up a major bio army, adding on tanks, his 3rd CC, and upgrades. It's not like he just loses because he didn't get to go across the map. But Classic has really bought in himself all that time to be comfortable on 3 bases with Colossus tech. He also knows that his opponent's army is going to be, like, fairly heavy on Marines for a while. So Colossus are especially good. Oh, the Oracle finally dies. Finally. And with this kind of play, Classic does not have the ability to afford upgrades. When he gets an upgrade, he'll get double upgrades probably, but yep, no upgrades here. 2 Colossus and some force fields though, and a Guardian Shield, very effective against what is again a majority Marine-based army. And there's a double forge. Yeah. TY is real major defense right now against those Colossus are indeed the tanks. The tanks do get overwhelmed by the Zealots, so he's got to be very careful. He has to have his army collected together, knowing where his opponent's going to be coming in from, which he doesn't know. He scans the natural, maybe hoping to see the army still there or seeing some technology or something, but it's not there. It is flying, attacking over the right side. Saw the Phoenix there. TY does have his units all collected together, and actually that blink forward was way too bold. Classic did not have to blink forward right there. He's also moving into one of the best concaves possible for TY, and TY is taking full advantage of it. The upgrade lead comes in, the Vikings come in as well, and TY is going to dominate this fight. Classic absolutely taking the wrong approach to that fight. He thought he had a gotcha moment. He thought he caught TY off guard. He thought he was only on 1 tank, I guess. That's why he blinked forward. But TY was actually prepared to fight to a certain degree. Yeah, he had to stim backwards and collect himself, but he was actually ready to fight. Classic could have instead just roamed and continued to take the map control. You can never really push into the tanks in their range with the Colossus, but he might have been able to move over here and then move over there and then get a War Prism in there. And then, of course, build up his 4th base and more technology back at home. Instead, he just threw away his entire army almost. TUI might have a very easy path forward as he was on the brink of completing his army anyways. He's getting to Ghost as well as those Vikings. Now, Classic's not going into anything that is immediately counterable. He's going into Disruptors. The only counter to those are, you know, good old-fashioned splits. But the tanks are also going to be helpful against them, as long as TUI does get the opportunity to siege hop them. Which he just might. TUI's got some scouting, the Zel Naga, a little scouting over to the right side, a little vulnerable down this middle path, so Classic is sending Zealots in that direction. Classic needs to buy more time. He also needs to hope for a really good Disruptor shot. So far, only collecting 1 Marauder is not exactly great. Second one going to whiff entirely. TUI not just adding on tanks, but now also Liberators. The siege unit's going to be a real problem for Classic. He has lost all control over the map. His upgrades aren't yet done either. Not that I think they'll make a major difference. And the Disruptors are not getting those amazing hits. As the bio moves over to the left, the Disruptors on the right get hit by the tanks. The Classic Zone kind of Sim City. It's just a Nexus, but still is actually causing some problems. The Zealots did run by into the 3rd base, but reinforcements take care of him, and Classic is going to lose his 3rd base, something he absolutely cannot afford to do. His upgrades finished, but so did TUI's, so at least it's even on the upgrades. Classic, again, mostly dependent on these Disruptors, of which he will be at 8. That's a good number of Disruptors. But it's also just really majorly Disruptors. Tank left behind, I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but kind of helped the retreat be safe. Classic decides to take the 3rd as a 4th on the right side. TUI has his 4th done. Now that things have calmed down, we'll probably send that over to become a planetary and safeguard this particular attack direction. And getting his continued upgrades. Classic could set up his 2-2 if he was, you know, on 4 bases, but he's not, so his plan right now is to go for the good old balls. Upgrades don't impact balls. Yep, dodge and weave, focus fire, dodge and weave. Nicely done by TUI. Having these Liberators, even without their upgrades, are going to be helpful for securing certain locations against the armies. His Classic is kind of, he's kind of like putting on a front almost, like it's not real. His army power is high if he's abusing a choke. Extremely high. But pretty terrible if he's concaved upon. So he absolutely is the one that's in a more like delicate position. He needs to be super careful, but it's what he's supposed to do. He needs to put on this front. He needs to try and scare the bio. He needs to try and take engagements prior to his bases being under attack. And that's what he's trying to do. But TUI just moving on most of his bio to the left side. Disruptors pretty slow. Taking a while to respond. However, this response does seem well timed. I don't think TUI can actually take this fight. Yeah! Yeah, he thought about going after the Disruptors, but that didn't really work out. 13 Disruptors is a crazy amount. And these bio units are goners. They're still kind of taking down some units with them, and more importantly, another attack on the right side. Much more importantly, Disruptors, major weakness, not particularly good at splitting. They're slow. They need some help. They need to be controlled. And the split here has worked out wonderfully for TUI as he also takes the high ground. Back at home, tanks help defend with the planetary, because again, Classic is so Disruptor-based that going for speed is not really particularly good for him. He runs across the map to try and cause a base trade. He runs into tanks, has to wait to clear them out. He has to use so many balls on the planetary, and then it's just all the damage being done to Classic, none to TUI. Classic, I actually have some trouble dealing with this one. Disruptors can't help against the Liberators, and the Sim City is not helping the Stalkers. Nice pickup right there from the Warp Prism. Very clutch last-second pickup, but it's still a very abusive position, as Metaphix would also still pick up. Okay, they did not. Finally, Classic will break this position, but once again, TUI just sending army after army across the map, knowing that Classic, once he's lost control, holy shit, of the map, he has lost control of the game. That's why Classic was doing the attacks that he was. He was hoping that TUI would never feel comfortable moving across the map. And he would always be on the defense, but It is a very large map, one that is difficult to control in its entirety. And Classic definitely didn't have the resources to just easy peasy warp in, like, let's say 14 Zealots, right? Is that in a game of which things were completely even up until this point, Classic is still the one pressuring a little bit more. Any kind of run by with bio would be maybe met with DT or Zealot response. Or recall. And there'd also be a lot more harassment on the offense, too. There'd be DTs going after the planetary Zealots in the main base, you know? The Classic is really all about this one army. Just Disruptor-based army was the only thing he had going for him. And if TY had panicked and just played passive and turtly against it, he might have slowly bled out. The TY is no fool. And here he comes in now for the final battle. So many Disruptors. One last shot from the Disruptor. Just to kind of put the cherry on top of a ultimate loss, I guess. Not exactly a very sweet dessert there. But Classic is pretty dead. He is ultimately going to lose this battle. He knows it, but it is his last life in the GSL, so why not just stay around for a little while longer? I won't even be able to break the planetary. If he's hoping for that, to give him that nice confidence boost, like at least I got that planetary. Is he? Oh, he got it. Confidence booster. TY does have another 4th base, however, so he is still golden. He's still good. Bio attack on the natural of Classic. His production now going to be completely forfeit. His economy is somewhat intact, thanks to this kind of almost hidden base, but... Oh, he blinked it to the main and brought his Disruptors, trying to take advantage of the ramp, but not really working out here. TY, with all of his production, would almost, by default, be countering the Disruptors, because these units are all popping out from different locations. The Stalkers, though, the Stalkers are actually good here, right? They're camping production, no doubt about that. TY, where is the rest of the army? It's all across the map. If there were DTs, this would actually be amazing. DTs causing an extra layer of chaos and sniping units when TY's not paying attention would be fantastic. Classic is really giving this a go. He is actually really trying to make this look like he could win, but I'm pretty sure he can't. But damn. Damn, is he trying. Imagine a couple of DTs just like one-shotting these Marines because they have +2. And suddenly it's only the Marauders returning home and they're overstimmed as well. Like, that actually could have been something. But even though Classic made all the right moves, he just did not have the supply to really do much with it. GG. TY. Gonna move on in GSL. Against the odds. Against the non-believers. And poor Classic is gonna be out of it alongside Bunny. Now, that was a fun GSL group. A lot of very odd games. Hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Please like, subscribe, follow, all the good stuff. And I'll see you for more GSL in the future. Bye-bye.